Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Murder Church on a Sunday morning. Welcome in here. I'm about to come at you live. Had to get some coffee. Got it with me this time. And let's rock and roll. We'll start this Sunday out. Thanks everybody for coming in. Let's go.
Let's rock.
Yo, good morning everybody. Welcome in here. What is up? Murder Church on the air. I've made it. Only 11 minutes late this morning. What is up everybody? Thanks for coming in here. Appreciate it. Charlotte in the house early. That's what I'm talking about. Across the pond. Jesse Charles hanging out here tonight. Happening as well. I almost don't know why I'm trying to use the word happening, but here I am using it. Shelly Duffy, Bonnie Bailey, Dizzy, Shannon, Jersey Jen. Gonna be waking up here, guys. Let me look through the chat here just for a second. City Kitty, Gabby. Let's rock indeed. Defense Attorney Meow. Shannon's in the house. Unbronzed. Ozzy, Laura, and even deeper into the future there. Tamzilla, thank you for becoming a member just a moment ago. Hold on. Let me show that bad boy off. Boom! Buzz the Confused member. Holy crap, that's what I'm talking about.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Get in here. Start this thing off hot this morning. Hot!
Give me the loot. Give me the loot.
Love it. Welcome in here. She was hanging out on Feral Friday, which is freaking awesome. Anybody hanging out in here for the very first time, you are in for a spicy, wild trial. Okay, this Phil Spector trial, this Hollywood trial from 2007. Lana Clarkson, B movie star, down on her luck in the industry. Been in the industry from the 70s, 80s, doing spots all throughout Hollywood and film and television. Ended up dead in the home of Phil Spector with a gunshot through her mouth. And it is a barbaric case so far, quite frankly. The two witnesses that we've had, a former girlfriend and a former acquaintance, if you want to call her that, had horrible stories of him holding them at gunpoint in very similar types of situations. So this is a wild one, guys. I appreciate everyone in here coming through again. Still looking through the chat here just for a second. Yeah, Gypsy's good, Shannon. I saw Shannon ask about Gypsy. Gypsy's good. She's rocking and rolling this morning. Got her back to good. Like, she has just, I know people are always asking, always kind of posting about her. Yeah, she just has a doggy type of Crohn's type of situation going on, and I can keep her good for a long period of time. She's on multiple meds, she's on special food, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, with no warning, she will start to where she can't pass her stool. Not to be super gross. So, and when that happens, it gets compacted to where she actually also can't pee. And when that happens, I know we're in trouble, and I'm gonna have to do something pretty freaking fast. So that's what happened Friday when I got home from lunch. She had a couple of rough days last week, and that always worries me. But then I felt like it had broke, because there'll be these days where she can barely get anything out, and then she'll have a big, we're in the business now. So that had actually happened last week. So going into Friday at lunch, I wasn't even worried, but I still walk around with her. I still check her out real good. I want to make sure everything's flowing and going. And I know she was having a little bit of issues, so I got real close, and I was like, holy crap. And when that happens, all that's happening is pee dribble. You can tell she's trying to pee, and it's just dribbling out of her. And that's when I know something is blocked up. So I have to take her to the vet. And then she has to, a lot of times she'll have to get a full-blown, put the sleep enema to get unblocked. And then this time, luckily, she didn't. It was a lighter I don't remember the exact wording they used, but they'd have to put her to sleep to do it. So, yeah, man, it freaking sucks, dude. But yeah, she's doing good this morning. She's rocking and rolling, and this has been like a 2-year ordeal. I know, and I appreciate everyone coming through. And you can send me messages, send me anything you think that it may be that I should talk to my vet about. But I will say that I have 2 vets. I have a regular vet, and I have a specialist that we deal with from Virginia Tech. And if you look that up, they actually figured out the special food. Before that, she couldn't actually basically eat anything. Like her digestive system just would not work. She's on an extremely special food that they figured out. So, and a new med that they figured out, which all does help. But it's an ordeal that continues to happen. So thanks everyone for that. I appreciate it. But yeah, we're gonna rock and roll with Murder Church here. We're gonna hang out here probably for, I would say, we usually go to about 12:30, 12:45. So, and today we're starting out. L.A. County Sheriff Senior Criminologist Dr. Lynn Harold takes the stand. We got an hour and a half with Dr. Lynn Harold. See what they say here. And yeah, trigger warnings all over this. Last episode with Jay on Tuesday was a lot. It was very heavy. But again, it is a murder trial, so I think we're all about we feel a lot of this from just being in the true crime community, right? Being a part of a mini trial. So anybody that's new in here that might have gotten in here because you're damn right. She loves her daddy. Because of Alan Jackson. Welcome in here. Alan Jackson is the prosecutor on this, okay? The defense attorney for Karen Reed is the prosecutor in this trial. Phil Spector has like 10 defense attorneys. One of them is what we call a mob defense attorney. He represented John Gotti, and he's intense. He's quite intense. So let's jump in here. Too much talking this morning. Let me ring the bells. I'm not sure if Viv's hanging and banging this morning. We're going to draw her in with the bells, baby. We start Murder Church off like this. And hit that like, see if you haven't. Share it out on X. Share it out on Twitter. Let people know you're hanging out this morning. I love it. Let's rock and roll, baby. First of all, I got to get my Murder Church logo up. Boom, boom. And then we'll try to fix that as we go here. We'll get the sound going. Again, I appreciate it, guys. Let's rock and roll.
After this would be Mark 25. I think you mark 26. The next would be 27.
Okay. And then
I want to make sure we're not double marking.
we're not, but we do have one other photograph of the scene.
And this judge is amazing. We call him Judge Diehard, Judge Bruce Willis. He oddly looks like Bruce Willis. This trial is all sorts of madness.
Yeah. This one here is a photograph that's been marked 23, and to direct the court's attention, this is the landing area that has this item on it, but we believe this photograph, Mr. Keel would say, was taken during the time he was there or around that time as opposed to later on.
And his testimony, which you're stipulating to, is that he didn't seize that item that we're looking at?
Correct. He didn't see it, and he didn't seize it, and if he saw anything like it, he would have examined it. If it had evidentiary value, he would have taken it.
For the purposes of our hearing, I think the long and short of it is he was asked specifically by both counsel, myself and Mr. Plord, whether or not he saw a white item on that bottom stair, and he said, I don't recall seeing anything, but if I had seen something and I thought it was of evidentiary value, I would have taken it.
Okay.
Sarah, I really appreciate that.
Well, the obvious reason, I mean, this is when you start looking at two-dimensional photographs, is this is somewhat consistent with Ms. Kaplan's testimony.
Correct.
Looking at a two-dimensional object.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to continue on.
All right.
And that's the sum and substance of Bob Kyle's proposed testimony, and the people would ask the defense to join in our stipulation for purposes of this hearing only, and only this hearing.
I understand.
Agreed. And I would also, I'm not sure if this was covered, but as to the areas of up the stairs and around the stairway wall, he said he carefully searched that area. He found the tooth material. He looked for similar material because of his original find.
I love that.
And that he would have examined anything that he saw, and if it had evidentiary value, he would have collected it.
I did cover that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. Okay.
All right,
We're good.
stipulations accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Second, Dr. Joseph Anselmo is a forensic odontologist and a defense expert in this case. He's been a forensic odontologist for some 22 years or greater.
Googling
And will
that now.
stipulate to his qualifications to testify to the following. He would testify, if called, duly sworn, and qualified, that he reviewed all dental material booked into evidence by the sheriff's crime lab or the sheriff.
Person who studies the structure and diseases of teeth, especially one who uses their knowledge to identify people and help solve crimes. Nice.
Sheriff's Department, and that includes items 10, 11,
Expand my vocabulary.
5,
Live on
and
Murder Church.
85G is in golf. Just so the court knows, so we're not talking in numbers. 10 and 11 were on the staircase.
Yes.
Small dental items. 5 was down at the base of the wall of the staircase. And item 85G was the dental material found on Lana Clarkson's belly, if you will.
Thank you.
On the dress. He determined they all came from Lana Clarkson. He would testify that certain of her dental material was not recovered. In other words, he could not make a finding that he could reconstruct all of her dental material. Some of it is gone. None of the missing dental material was the size of an entire thumbnail. And he cannot say for sure if any missing dental material is the same size and or shape as the missing acrylic thumbnail.
Okay.
He would further indicate that he would expect that he probably could tell the difference between the acrylic on the thumbnail and acrylic in the dental material if he examined them both. However, he cannot say that to a reasonable degree of medical certainty. Finally, he cannot determine the size of any missing portions of the dental material, other than to say he would not expect that any missing portion would be the size of an entire thumbnail. And that would be the sum and substance of his stipulation.
So stipulated?
That would be agreeable.
For purposes of this hearing, yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Finally, I think with Dr. Harold, it's just easier to call her to the stand and kind of walk through her testimony.
That's fine. You may proceed.
I know one of the pictures I'm going to use, I think we have previously marked, but I don't know which mark it is. But I have another copy.
You can, if you want, you can mark it next in order as well. If we have duplicates, that's fine.
Yeah, for the record, some of the matte photos that we use for the overlay, because if you use glossy photos, you lose it, but you can't see the detail. And I'm giving the court duplicate glossy so you could see the detail.
Follow along.
Right, follow
Okay.
along, right.
All right. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. You do solemnly swear
Yeah,
that the
welcome in,
testimony you may
everybody.
give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes,
Good question. I might have missed that part.
so swear.
Thank you. Please
The
be
majority
seated
of
and
this
wait to
has,
stand.
so probably.
Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Lynn Denise Harold, Lynneherold.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good morning, Dr. Harold.
Good morning.
We just, we met before last May on Lincoln County Bar, and we just spoke a few minutes together with the prosecutors and Mr. Board here.
Yes,
And you are were the criminals that the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department assigned to do some examinations on certain items of evidence that came in on the case involving Lana Clarkson and Joel Spector?
yes.
Okay. And how many years' experience do you have with regard to being a criminalist?
I've been a criminalist since 1982.
Okay. And one of the areas that you were asked to examine were was the two thumbnails that came from the coroner's office of Lana Clarkson, correct?
Yes.
Got Linda Bodden coming up here to do this one for the defense side.
And you have had experience in the past examining natural fingernails, I assume?
Yes.
And you've had experience in the past examining acrylic fingernails, I assume?
Yes.
And since 1982, could you estimate how many acrylic nails you have examined in the course of doing various homicide
Yeah, we need some fucking
investigations?
wigs. The chat is already screaming for wigs, Phil Spector, and I want a different wig. We've been seeing the same freaking mop Beatles-esque wig. I want something different. Give me something a little bit fancy. Give me something spicy, Phil. Get a little wild today, baby.
Hundreds, fingernail kits.
Fingernail.
Come on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Not, how about whole
And
fingernails?
I'm not sure if the jury's back or
That
not. I missed
is
it.
included. Fingernail scrapings, clippings, whether they're artificial, real.
Okay, and so if I asked you the same question with regard to acrylic, you would say that it's in that hundreds, in other words, you wouldn't differentiate acrylic versus fingernails?
To me, it's all fingernail associated evidence.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
And you did examine the fingernail scrapings of Lana Clarkson under the left thumbnail, correct?
The left
That's what it
thumbnail?
seems
Right.
like,
I believe
Sarah.
it's
So
the
probably
right.
not.
Well, did you examine both?
Well, yes, I looked at all the fingernails associated with this case
Okay.
that I had.
Okay. And under, did you issue a report dated September 26, 2003?
I don't know the date of it. I didn't bring that material with me. It was my understanding that this hearing was about what I didn't have, not what I did have.
Okay. Do you recall if I showed you a copy of the report? Would you remember whether you issued it or didn't issue it or whatever? Actually, it was a draft report first under September 26 or 2003.
Yes, but I'm not prepared to testify to what I did see or not see. I'm here specifically to address the issue of the hearing, which is, does an item I didn't examine have potential value or not?
Did you issue a draft report dated September 26, 2003?
I don't have the report with me.
If I showed you a copy of your draft and your final report, would that help refresh your recollection as to the dates that you issued both of them?
Yes.
Ms. Flood, I'll stipulate to the dates of the
Okay.
draft and the final.
Thank you. September 26, 2003 for a draft report has been stipulated to Your Honor, and March 18, 2004 for a final report dealing with the issues of the fingernails.
So stipulated.
All right, we'll accept that stipulation.
Going back to where I left off, did you examine the left-hand fingernail scrapings of Lana Clarkson?
I examined all the fingernails, whether they were clipped or scraped, associated with Lana Clarkson, as provided to me in this case.
Okay. And on March 18, 2004, did you issue a report that stated, quote, the left-hand fingernail scrapings from victim Clarkson, item 85A, did not contain any material appearing to be potentially foreign body tissue based on microscopical examination other than the apparent blood flakes, close quote. I can show you.
If you're reading from my report, then
Let me
yes.
present to you. I just read from it. Would that sound accurate?
Would you like me to refresh your
That's an
memory?
accurate reflection of what was actually written in her report.
Okay. Did you also review the, what was called the damaged
She's not fucking
nail
around
kit,
now.
item
She's here for a reason.
85B?
A fist fight, Linda, in a minute.
Did you also review that?
Yes.
Now, could you explain to us what a damaged nail kit is in terms of your understanding?
In situations where the coroner's department or the investigating officers see someone that has damage to a fingernail,
Whose lights
whether
up,
it
peeps?
is
Help me out in here.
artificial nail or natural nail, that particular nail is usually identified and collected separately. In this particular case, there was a missing portion of acrylic fingernail that was known or seen to be missing at the crime scene, the original scene. It was therefore identified and collected separately in a separate envelope as a damaged nail. Routinely, all the other nails would have been clipped and grouped together, left hand versus right hand, and not separated. So it's a clue that there is a potential missing portion of a fingernail or acrylic nail that may be useful in a reconstruction or an association of the people, place, and time of the event.
Is this on? No.
So, it should be on. It was on.
Okay.
We do it.
What do we do?
It's on 3 it's on 8.
online.
There we go.
Okay.
Just a second.
Now,
No, she's got it.
thank you.
It's not showing what you.
A lot of directors in this production.
Take the
era.
lid off my
Now,
coffee here.
This was previously
Pull
marked.
this thing
and I'll
down a
give
little
the
bit.
item
I
number.
like to
We
drink
had
it
one previously
today.
marked. This is a picture of the right fingernail at the coroner's office, and I assume that you have seen this picture before, correct?
Yes, I have.
And did you see this picture before you issued your final report on March 26, 2004? March
Yes.
2000. Okay. And in this picture, the thumbnail had not been clipped, correct?
Correct.
Now, the item that came to you, the clip nail. I'm trying to put this up now.
Right.
And Your Honor, I have a photograph that we're going to mark next in line.
Yes. 28, I believe. Court's 28.
Okay, maybe we could give the witness the actual exhibit, and we've got a
Sure.
computer version here.
Absolutely.
you.
May I approach?
Minute. Yes.
Is this the thumbnail that we are speaking about labeled damage, that came from damage nail kit item 85B that we just talked about?
Yes.
Okay. And that is the little vanilla envelope that it came in?
Actually, it's not the original envelope it came in, it's my subsequent containment of, of the item in a smaller envelope.
The clipping that you were referring to that was not in the nail we saw from the coroner's office, is that what you're talking about? It's above, right? You have the picture.
Ask that question again?
The clipping that we discussed that was apparently done at the coroner's office after we saw the picture that we previously looked at. That's the clipping we discussed.
Yes, that's actually on the left-hand side of the picture, the excised fingernail with a portion of the acrylic nail on top of it. And apparently they tried to do the routine, which was clip the end of the free nail, which caused the acrylic to further break. And in the far right-hand side where the beam is right now, that is actually a portion of the natural nail that is clipped off of the original nail. Next to it is the broken off additional piece of acrylic nail, and it all physically matches back together to look like what was in the picture you showed previously.
And when a nail is excised, the portion
Just how hard.
to the bottom
I love this judge so much.
that we're seeing here, or the nail over here, is taken out. That would be the part that
I'm gonna
forms
give him some
under the
hearts.
cuticle.
You deserve it.
Yes, it appears the entire nail was removed.
Okay. So this, right where below where we see the kind of acrylic and a little bit of a line, that would
sit
appear
on
to
the
be
shoulder
under
sometimes.
where the nail would, that would be under cuticle.
Yes.
Doing perfect.
And then you
Killing
also
it.
looked at,
Killing the
we have this
game.
one next to
The man.
29, court's 29.
Don't want to distract him too much.
We'll bring you the, I'm gonna bring you, Chris will bring you the original picture. I think this is it.
I recognize the
You can see
picture.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard because we find that we're losing a lot of focus with light.
You just asked to mark 29, I have no idea. It's up to you as to what you want to mark.
Yeah,
You may
I think so
proceed.
too.
Pardon me.
This is the same nail with the view from looking at it from the underside.
Yes, what is known as the ventral side.
Like, you put somebody in that position to where you have a gun in their face, which we've heard has happened by 2 other witnesses here. You never know how someone's going to react, okay? I mean, the other women didn't want to be there, but they didn't necessarily fight him, right? And a horrible story we got from the second witness, where I'm not even going to go into it, but if anybody saw the last episode, it was horrible. So he gets Lana Clarkson there, and then starts to try to pull the same bullshit, and maybe she's not having it. Maybe she's not going along for the ride, right? Starts to get into a struggle with this man. And again, I've went over that. I don't think he probably even, but he's wasted, right? And it sounds like he gets incredibly belligerent and even changes personalities, for God's sake. But yeah, I could see the struggle happening, and then Lana Clarkson is not going to be about that at all. And then this happens, and it's just this dude's fucking inflated, insane ego, thinking that he controls and owns the world.
Go ahead.
The curved part. This is ventral.
You don't.
This is dorsal.
You don't
this is
own or
the
control
ventral
any human
side.
being.
Okay, so that would be the portion that rests against
Because you
your
wanna
skin under
Get laid.
Yes.
now. Okay.
The place where you get all the dirt when you're gardening.
Okay. And then more.
A highly technical definition.
That's what we're looking for here.
Ms. Abramson could comment about that.
Okay. And so you also looked at what I would call the underside portion, the ones we don't, if you're a woman, you don't polish, obviously, because you can't get under there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what type of examinations did you do of this nail?
I looked at this nail visually and stereomicroscopically.
Father's
That
Day's
is
next
with
week. I had no clue, actually. I'm
a
terrible at that
moderate
stuff.
amount of magnification, but not by removing any particular items and separately mounting them for high magnification.
We're trying to now, let me just ask you to explain what stereomicroscopically is, and what is the magnification level, what does that mean?
The particular microscopes that I were using for this exam ranges from a magnification of 10 times to 63 times.
Okay, and what level of magnification did you look at item 85B at, if you remember, or
All of those.
all of those, all the way up to
Yes.
65 times,
Yes.
did you say?
In general, as a microscopist, what you do is you start out looking at all items of evidence, first by eye. You're looking for large, obvious things that are loose, that you need to contain or control, that may have evidentiary value, and then you go up in magnification from there, lowest to highest.
And so prior to doing that, when you looked at it visually, or sometimes I hear it, the word grossly, is grossly the same as visually?
Yes.
And what is macroscopically?
Basically, the unaided eye, or maybe magnifying glass 5 times, 10 times.
Okay, so you look at it visually, or what some people would say grossly initially. When you first got this item, did it appear to you that when somebody tried to clip the nail, some of the particles of the acrylic broke off?
Correct.
Had you ever looked at, seen photos of this nail?
Yes.
Now, after you looked at it and issued your report, by the way, when you do your observations, you record your observations in what are called lab notes or bench notes?
Yes.
Okay. And did you record your observations in your bench notes about this particular item that you looked at, 85B?
Yes.
I know you do not, because we sat here, do not have your lab notes with you. And just for the record, Mr. Jackson was in Discovery 1622. Let me read you, and let me ask you if this is what you wrote in your lab notes for the stereoscopic exam. Quote, all natural and synthetic nail edges examined and vertical surfaces. Blood noted on the natural nail strip, but no potentially foreign body tissue with tissue integrity material noted on the distal, looks like vertical edge of the synthetic nail fragment.
Ventral edge.
Is it ventral?
Ventral.
I'll stipulate that that's an accurate reading of the first paragraph from those.
All right.
Okay, that is an accurate reading, Mr. Jackson just stipulated. Okay, let me ask you this, that you did then take photos of some observations, is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and did you find in your lab notes or write down that, quote, nothing noted in general of probative value at this time except possible distal edge of polish to be discussed with investigating officers?
Yes.
Okay. Did you make any further notes of what you discussed with the investigating officers that is not indicated in this bench note?
No.
Do you know what investigating officers you discussed, whatever it was you discussed with them, who they were?
My discussions were pretty much limited to,
No, just mention the names of the officers.
limited to discussions with Detective Lilienfeld. He was the one specifically assigned for all laboratory interactions and evidence control.
Right. Then
Allergies are
the
killing
next
me.
portion says dorsal surfaces of nails. What is a dorsal surface?
Well, in standard medical terminology, there is a standard position, and dorsal is, this is medical position. Dorsal is the back, so with the hands out. So this is actually the back of your hand, the dorsal side of your hand. This is ventral.
Okay. So the dorsal, meaning the portion would have the fingernail polish on it, or
Yes.
acrylic, just with
Yes.
ease, okay. Dorsal surfaces of nail fragments and polish appear unremarkable. Generally, no observed material that would be useful for reconstructive issues, e.g., example given, I assume?
Yes.
Smokeless powder or BSP. Now, is that a correct, did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And BSP means blood stain pattern analysis?
Yes.
Okay. And then, did you send the nail on for further biology or DNA examination from Steve Renteria?
Yes.
Were you ever told, or did you ever receive a report back as to whether or not anything of evidentiary value was found or not found?
I was probably told by Steve Renteria, I don't know how many times, what the DNA results were on this entire case. I don't retain that in memory, and I know he's reported it, but I do not interpret his reports because I can't. I ask him again and again the same questions.
All right, that's fine. Now, you also examined the slip. Do you have this back here? Well, that's a different picture. We can use them, but we'll put this on and just mark this.
Next in order?
Would be 30.
I'll hit the promo button. There we go.
The slip of Alana Clarkson. Did you also?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yes.
I was not looking up at you. Okay, and is this the slip that you examined?
It appears to be.
Okay, and did you also examine what is called a tape lift done by one of the coroner's investigators, Ms. Jamie Linton?
Yes, done by Jamie as a coroner's criminalist.
Coroner's criminals, okay. And could you tell us what a tape lift is generally, just so that we are on the same page?
One way of recovering some trace evidence is using what is called adhesive lifting. It can be a piece of tape, literally like Scotch tape. It can be a specially made sheet of adhesive paper, and it's used as a general collection procedure to capture all potentially loose things. It is less discriminating than seeing something by eye and specifically picking up that item.
Okay. And in this particular case, you were aware from your discussions with Ms. Lindenwood that the tape lift was done of Ms. Clarkson at the scene, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the tape lift was from the lower portion of the black slip where we see the arrows around?
No.
Okay. Did you issue a report saying it was from the lower portion of the black slip?
No.
Perhaps I can refresh your recollection.
You may approach.
I'll show you, and it's Bates number 1560. It's the 3-page report that we stipulate the date to.
Knocking on wood now after all. Jesus Christ. Oh, God, why don't I even say that? Why don't I even type that? Good Lord. I'm going to be covered up in poison ivy very soon. From that jinx.
Mine get bigger all the time with 2 1/4 now. By this case, the time just gets to be 3s.
I see what the problem is.
All right, let me ask you a couple questions. The report says the tape was from the lower portion of the black slip, correct?
Yes, however, it's a terminology issue. When you show me an entire picture of the slip, I'm thinking the lower portion, like lower down to the hemline.
Okay.
That description was based on what was associated with the envelope it was recovered in, and it actually referred to lower position of the torso based on the at-scene position.
Okay, so...
So it's actually what we would call mid-level.
So if I do like around here, is that about there?
Yes, and above, actually above the arrows.
Okay, so somewhere is around here.
Yes.
Indicating the middle of the dress?
I would say below the bust line, and then from midpoint after the bust line, would that be about accurate?
Yes, actually, if you look at the at-scene pictures, you can see the area very clearly with Miss Clarkson in the chair in the original position she was observed in. It is right in the middle. After Jamie Lynchmood picked up a white particle, that area was tape lifted with a sheet that's not this large, but close to this side.
Smaller than
Yeah.
an
Morning,
8.5
Debbie.
by 11
Get in here.
photograph.
Okay. All right, so about an 8 by 10 size sheet that's got sticky material on the other side,
Yes,
and it
it's,
picks up whatever is there.
yes.
And what are the arrows that are in this picture? Because you said the tape lift was above the arrows.
Those arrows are placed to indicate directional blood stains.
And with regard to the tape lift, when you looked at the tape lift, and I assume you looked at it both with grossly and under a stereo microscope?
Yes.
Okay. And when you looked at it under a stereo microscope, did you issue a statement in your final report that it was, quote, observed to contain apparent blood as well as extensive fibrous and particulate debris, undetermined evidentiary value?
Yes, I did issue that statement. The long and the short of all this is, in my examination, I am there as a scientist trying to discover through the physical evidence in this particular case, where was Miss Clarkson? Where was Mr. Spector? Where was the gun? What incidences or parts of this can be reconstructed based on the physical evidence? I was aware that there was a damaged fingernail. I was aware of the dental material. I actually examined all those items. And I'm looking for things on all their clothing and everything recovered that will reconstruct the events. I knew that there was a missing piece of acrylic nail. I was searching for that. For example, it could have been associated with the bullet. If the hand of Miss Clarkson was up on the barrel of the gun and it had gotten blasted off, it could be in Miss Clarkson's head or the bullet.
Hold on for a second, guys.
I was aware that it could have been at the scene. If she attempted to get out of the door and it broke off, it could have been at the scene on the floor. I was aware that it was picked up originally by Jamie Lintermood as the item. It said possible acrylic nail on her slip dress. And in fact, that was not fingernail material. It was a piece of dental restoration. I was looking for things that had specifically smokeless powder on them, because that is something that could be associated definitively with that gunshot and could help place people.
Well, let me just ask you that. You were also aware that the acrylic, which I think you just described to us when we were talking with Mr. Jackson, Mr. Dixon, was about a piece of about a quarter of an inch piece?
That's, yes, and I'll have to go back. I can actually remeasure that off the photographs that I took.
But for the purpose of the day,
there's a piece missing, yes.
For the purpose of the day, the ballpark figure that you told us was it's about a quarter of an inch piece.
Yes.
And you were also aware that it very well could have been shattered, that quarter of an inch piece.
Yes.
So that it would not even be a whole quarter of an inch piece, correct?
Yes, that's a possibility.
Okay. And if it was shattered, it could be seen possibly grossly or maybe microscopically or maybe not even at all because it's in such a small piece.
Except that I was, even if it was small, I was specifically looking for it.
Or shattering.
Or some part of it, the nail polish or anything like that.
Now, but it was clear to you that the whole fingernail of Miss Clarkson, her actual fingernail was there, correct?
Yes.
All right. And except for that quarter of an inch piece missing, the rest of the acrylic was also there.
Yes.
I would like to ask a question before I lose
Yes,
my chain of thought. I'm going to show you a photograph. It doesn't have a number on the back. I think this was my follow-along photograph, Mr. Plord.
It is, and I've got it's exhibit 25 on the Elmo now.
Dr. Harold, let me show you this, and I'm just going to ask you,
I'm aware of
this object, is that at all consistent with the missing piece of fingernail in your opinion?
I cannot tell, and I'll tell you why. Let me tell you what I know about this whole situation and take it from there.
Okay.
Because I was the one that handled all the trace evidence on this first before it went on to other analysts, I knew early on that this potential piece of nail was missing. In July of 2003, I got a call from Detective Lilienfeld who said that Stan White, who I happen to have known from before he retired, had made a statement to him about a possible piece of fingernail being found at the scene. And at the time, I said to Detective Lilienfeld, that very well could be true because what was picked up as possible fingernail is not fingernail and it's never been found, and no one knows that except me. At that point in time, I was the only one aware of that. So I told Detective Lilienfeld speak with the DA. It was at the time Doug Sortino. This does have potential reconstructive value, and see if there is any way that this item that was recovered, if I can examine it. And from there, this has taken on a life of its own over the years as a number of motions for this supposed recovered item. From my position as a scientist on this case, this item, whatever was seen or collected or not collected, has potential value or no value depending on what it is and what it's associated with. And you cannot predict what that value is based on what I've seen on the case. Theoretically, it could be a piece of this fingernail acrylic. Whatever I saw on the existing part has no bearing on what that fragment could have associated with it. If it was a piece of the fingernail blasted off, regardless of what I've seen so far, that entity has its own merit that has to be evaluated. It may have value, it may have no value.
Let me ask you a question. Let's, pure hypothetical, and it's just that. Assume that the item that Stan White saw was indeed the missing piece of fingernail. Further assume, do you know what bullet wipe is?
Yes.
Further assume that it has bullet wipe on it. One, is that possible that the portion missing would have bullet wipe and the portion that remained had none?
Yes, I have to say that I did see part of this hearing, and people are consistently misusing the terms bullet wipe. To me, bullet wipe is specifically from the lead nose of a bullet, whereas some people use it to refer to anything associated with the projectile. For example, from my perspective, if that was fingernail, acrylic, I would be looking at it specifically for something like smokeless gunpowder. If the thumb had been in the mouth.
Yeah, this is the perfect. Disney nailed that. I probably can't even say it correctly. The Daubert hearing permits the parties to examine the challenged expert in open court to develop his or her testimony for purposes of evaluating its admissibility. Provides a systematic framework for a trial court judge to assess the reliability and relevance of an expert witness testimony before it's presented to the jury. That's awesome. Thanks, Dizzy.
The gases could loosen and blow off a piece of that acrylic, and it could pick up lead, it could pick up smokeless powder. Primer particles are pretty useless because they're everywhere. And it could be in a part of the crime scene separate and different than where this rest of the damaged nail is. It could have completely different trace materials associated with it.
Assuming it did, would that have assisted you in any way in reconstructing the scene or informing an opinion as to what happened?
It could be useful in placing her hands at the time of the discharge of the gun. The gun had to have been in her mouth in an upright position. Well, you can't, it's very awkward to pull a trigger that way. You would have to use your thumbs. If her thumbnail came off because it was at the barrel end of the gun, then that thumbnail was not on the trigger, pulling the trigger.
All right, I understand. Thank you. You may proceed.
Well, let me go on that. You said her thumbnail.
Well, before I proceed, how much longer? I'm only.
Now that she just said all that, a lot longer.
Okay.
Well, and Your Honor,
What?
I think I've interposed this objection. All due respect to counsel, I've interposed this objection a couple of times. It appears that under the court's questioning, which is laser-like in its efficiency.
You're not buttering.
Seriously,
You're not attempting to butter me up.
The reality is, Judge, you're the audience that we're here for. This was a court's inquiry. The court appears to have had very pinpointed questions for Dr. Harold. I would suggest that anything outside of this pinpoint questioning that's for your benefit to begin with is irrelevant for the purposes of this discussion or this hearing itself.
Well, I don't know. I mean, those are the areas I'm concerned about. There may be questions asked that I haven't thought through or that help me getting to where I'm trying to go in this hearing. So if there's more to go, I just have to sort of assume, are we going to break? Can you come back at 1:30?
Yes,
Okay.
but I may be able to cut it short.
Sure.
The flip side of it is, it may have absolutely no value.
Oh, I understand that.
And there's no way to know without seeing the item, and there's no way as a scientist I can predict that value or make an interpretation. The world is a possibility until it's like, show me what's behind door number 2, I'll tell you what it is and if it has any value. I know what's behind door number 1, and that doesn't help me tell you what's behind door number 2.
All right. With that in mind,
he
do you
really
still have
fucking
further
is.
questions?
Yes, Your Honor, because she did certain things with her hands, and I wanted to ask her about what she...
All right.
Also, I have questions on this and some other questions in other areas.
We'll be in recess till 1:30 this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's coming back, baby. We're going to keep rolling.
And the witness
We got a while
presence here
left on
before
this
you may
one.
resume.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Harold, good afternoon. Before we left for lunch,
Thanks everybody for being here this
Your
morning.
Honor,
Appreciate
the judge
it.
asked you a
Hit
couple
that
of
like,
questions,
share her
and I'd
out.
like to
You see this, the X
start from
post.
there, but let's go
repost
back
it,
a little
please.
bit
Thank
because you did mention that
Everybody hanging and banging.
everybody has been using certain terms loosely here, and I want to go back and try to clarify the various terms. What is soot?
Depends on how you're using the term.
Well, in terms of a sooting in the mouth from a
Let's get
gunshot
technical,
wound.
Linda.
You'd have to ask the person
This
who
lady
is
looks like someone you do
using
not
the
fuck
term,
with.
how they're applying it. For me, when I'm looking at things microscopically, I don't call something soot. I see either smokeless gunpowder with carbon coating, smokeless gunpowder without its carbon coating. I can see particles of carbon separated from the smokeless powder. It could be lead from the bullet. Primer particles you cannot see with a light microscope, so I wouldn't even see those. And it is used, sooting, for example, or the term gunshot residue, is used by different people depending on what their specialty is and how they're applying it.
Okay, and what is bullet wipe specifically as you use it?
Well, I don't use the term bullet wipe. I've heard that term used in reference to these proceedings by other people.
Okay.
I would again be looking for either something very specific like lead from the bullet. Another person here in a different specialty area used bullet wipe to mean anything associated with a projectile going through something.
Okay.
So again, you'd have to ask that person to define specifically what they're talking about.
Okay, and can you see bullet wipe?
Bullet wipe. Here we go. We got Google. I can get it to son of a bitch. Bullet wipe is the material deposited by a bullet on any surface with which it comes into contact after it is fired. Pretty straightforward.
Visually, without the use of anything.
I guess I have to object because of her definition of bullet wipe. She just said she doesn't use that term, and it depends on what, it just sounds vague.
Sustained, given what the witness has previously answered as to how she uses that term, it really, there's no way she can answer it.
Okay. Well, how do you use that term? When you specifically use that term, how do you use
She
it?
indicated she didn't use the term. No.
Sustained.
Have you ever been in any meetings with the coroner's office associated with this case where that terminology was explained to you as to how it was utilized?
No.
Okay. Has anyone ever explained to you how Stan White utilized that term?
No.
Did you see any memorandums or documents or
Is this the trial version of GIF or GIF?
all where that term was discussed in terms of this case?
No.
Okay. can you see gunshot residue visually?
Gunshot residue is another term that it depends on how you're applying it. There is a difference between gunshot primer residue
Right.
and smokeless powder residue and carbon particles that may be associated with it. So it again depends on how you define it.
Did you see any reports concerning the ammunition or the bullet cartridge that was the death cartridge in this case, concerning whether or not this ammunition had a lot of contained smokeless powder?
Did I see any?
Well, let me back up.
reports?
All right.
I
Did
think
you know
what
what
you're
type of-
asking me is, did I see the test fires that were done by firearms for distance determination?
Actually, I'm not. I'm asking you, were you ever told what type of ammunition this ammunition was that caused the death of Lana Clarkson?
At one time, I knew only because I had it, and I was told by firearms expert Jim Carroll what it was. I independently did not determine what it was.
Okay. Can there be burned particles and gunshot residue and unburned particles?
Yes.
Can there be burned
I
particles
like this lady.
or unburned particles?
She's telling it like it is, baby.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
I don't know how you're applying the term.
Sit on our
I'm
little
talking about how you use it. I'm only specifically how you use it.
I am part of this.
I don't use the term sitting.
At all, okay.
There can be
I am the microphone.
burnt, unburnt, or partially burnt
Right?
smokeless gunpowder particles.
Right. Have you yourself done any
Ronnie, good morning. Get in
testing
here.
on copper
Get the
jacketing
hell in
bolts
here.
to see how much items you can see from the discharge, or whether you can see any items from the discharge that are visible?
Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to object. I can't see it for the life of me. I'm trying to figure out how this goes to the evidentiary hearing to determine whether or not Henry Lee pocketed, secreted, destroyed evidence at the crime scene. I don't see this as...
It goes to the effect of credibility of Stan White, who said he saw bullet wipe on this 1/4 inch particle that is claimed.
But
Just a second. What
This
I'm
is
going to
killing
do,
me.
and that's what I've been
Rebecca,
looking
a little
for,
more.
I want to get Mr. White's testimony, and I want to read it to the witness and see if she can do something with it. Okay, I think perhaps this can help you. Reading from page 1719 of the transcript. Question, and you describe something silver on it. Is that correct? Answer, yes. Question, are you saying that you know it was something from a bullet? Is that your testimony? Answer, I'm not saying I know anything. What I'm saying is what I saw and what I believed it to be, because I have seen similar blood-lead transfers on both bodies before, and on fingernails and on bone. So he's calling it a lead transfer. If it's lead, it would have to be from the bullet, not the cartridge. Does that mean something to you? Can you transfer from the bullet itself onto a fingernail? Particles of a bullet?
Lead is a soft metal, and you can mark anything with it. Doesn't have to be a fingernail. If you dragged it on a piece of paper, you would leave a streak.
All right, so if we're using, or the term is being used, wipe or whatever, it's being, for the purpose of the questions asked you, it means lead transfer. Have you ever seen any such thing?
Yes.
Have you ever seen it on a fingernail?
Not that I can specifically recall a case on.
Can you recall anything you've ever seen it on?
I'm trying to think of a very specific example.
Okay.
And off the top of my head, I can't.
No, that's fine. I understand.
I interpret that as Stan White is reporting that he saw something white. He interpreted it as a fingernail, and he saw a gray or silver streak. And to me, what that is, I can't tell you till I see it till I confirm it's a fingernail or whatever item it is, and then I look at it to determine what's causing that streak.
Okay.
The bullet could white, the strict lead streak could appear gray or silver. The carbon-coated smokeless powders can appear gray. The so-called sooting on the tongue could be actually the carbon particle blast and would have a gray appearance. So all these people see something white, see something gray, and I look at it at a different level of detail, and I can't tell you what that is until I see it.
Well, we're only talking about Stan White seeing something
Yeah.
white and gray. So you said all these people.
Stan White.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can you see visually trace material from a bullet?
Depends on what it is.
And how big it is, correct?
I'm going in her mouth.
What about with the naked eye? Can you see it with the naked eye? Trace material.
Depends on what it is.
Okay.
Getting crazy
And
smart.
we did show you earlier, oh, by the way, this is where we get back to with the judge. Before we left, you were starting to do something with your hands when you were talking about the gases. But the gases, you said they could be so powerful as to break off an acrylic fragment, correct?
As a theoretical, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's what happened.
Okay.
I'm saying theoretically, for the purposes of this motion or hearing, this reported seen object could be anything. It could have any amount of value from extreme importance, one party in the issue or the other, or absolutely no value. Or in fact, it may not even be a fingernail. Fingernail could have broken off at the House of Blues.
I can do it manually.
Until you have the object and you evaluate what it is and what it could be associated with, you have no way of evaluating.
That's where you
What it
started, the
is.
judge started asking you questions, and that's where I want to go back to. Now, because you did something, you said, you showed something with regard to, you did with your hands. Could you remember what you did? We didn't describe it for the
I just
record.
held my hands up. Yeah.
I am the
theoretically, you can separate an acrylic nail
Right?
from a natural fingernail and have that piece of acrylic go through a different series of events or environments and have it appear differently than what remains associated with the hand.
You just said theoretically.
Yes.
Okay, you're not saying that in this case, that
No.
you formed, are you saying that you formed any opinion in this case regard to it?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I can't. I don't even know that
I
the
can host
object
my-
we're
show with
talking
myself.
about is a fingernail.
Or even existed in, right, or even
Good
existed.
point, Steve.
You're not jumping to any conclusions. Okay. Now, with regard to the gases, though, you did say the gases are powerful enough to possibly, theoretically, we're talking theory, break off a portion of acrylic fingernail, right?
Yes.
You mean the gases of a gun going off in the mouth?
Yes.
Okay. And how powerful are those gases?
I'm not here to testify as a firearms
You got
expert.
it. That was actually awesome.
I'm asking you
That was a good
because
call.
you said they were very powerful. So in the way you use powerful, how powerful are you using that term? And what are you using that term?
I'm going to sustain the objection. We, again, seem to be getting off topic as to what we're doing here today, which is
Shannon
very
loves her.
limited, as opposed to what evidence might or might not be relevant and admissible before the jury.
Okay. With regard to the portion you said was about 1/4 of an inch piece of the acrylic top, it's really not a fingernail, it's an acrylic top of a nail. It's a fake fingernail.
That's correct.
Okay. I think we've all been using that term loosely, too. It's an acrylic
Yes.
top of a fingernail. And it's about 1/4 of an inch, I think you said?
Yeah,
About-
roughly. I'll have to remeasure it.
Right.
At one time I had measured it.
Ballpark figure. And then, can I have a...
Yeah, Phil isn't even in there. No, we don't get a wig today. I swear to God. I'm pissed. Need to keep the Crypt Keeper picture up at all. Actually, I need to get that where I can just like pop
Yes,
that one out.
please. Thank you.
I still want to try to put the actual Crypt
No.
Keeper's face on that. I don't know if it's
On
going
the
to
red
take though, because the
carpet, there was
Crypt
a piece of
Keeper's
white
face
that
is
was
just
an
a
exhibit,
fucking.
and I just
It's
pulled
just
up when I pushed
a
up.
skull.
No.
I think that'd be sweet. I'm just going to try.
There was a question to you about this.
That's-
If you had to go back with this ruler in the picture. By the way, we
Jesus.
put rulers in the picture so we can measure things later on, sizes, right?
Yes.
You could actually go back and actually from here, you could measure about what that piece is, correct?
Actually, no, I have a problem with some of Dr. Lee's photography because the rulers appear not to be in the same plane or the same parallax as the objects he's photographing. So it is erroneous to try and measure from that. You'll get a bad
Are you saying on
perspective.
this picture, which we had marked as number 26, is that, or 28?
25, I think. Make it a better find.
25, by the way, have you seen this picture before?
Briefly.
Okay, when?
They just arrived and were given to me within the last 2 weeks, so I have briefly reviewed them, but I have not studied them in detail.
Okay, so when you say the pictures, you mean a lot of pictures?
Yeah, maybe 30 pictures total.
All right. But you have seen number 25 before, correct?
Yes.
Are you saying from this picture, you can't tell whether this piece is more than 1/4 of an inch?
Correct. It appears to be a picture taken at an angle, but the ruler, and it's slightly out of focus, but the ruler is kind of in focus and in a different plane, as if it was held up in front of the lens and not down with the object. It should be down with the object, and the photograph should be taken at a 90-degree angle.
Okay, so all I asked you was that, are you saying that you cannot tell from this picture that this piece of white material is more than 1/4 of an inch?
Yes.
Okay. Now, going back to where you had your hand, did you ever put did you put your thumb in your mouth? You were saying something about it before lunch when the judge asked you that it was kind of hard or difficult to get your hand in a position. Do you remember that?
Yes, but that's not what I said.
What did you say? I don't want to misquote you.
I said that finding the piece of missing fingernail may have important implications in being able to position Lana's hands at the time of the discharge of the weapon.
Did you?
If the
I'm sorry, I
gun
apologize.
was
Well, it's not in the house.
in her mouth and in an upright
I'm
position.
trying to put Phil Spector's face on the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt.
It is difficult
Oh,
to get
fuck,
it
it's weird.
in
It didn't
this
really
position
work
to
right at
pull.
all. Holy shit, it made it fucking like a demon from hell. Oh my god. This is what it generated. Mother of God. Phil Spector morphing into the Crypt Keeper, more or less. Good God almighty. Wow.
The trigger with your finger. That leaves you with the possibility of pulling the trigger with your thumb.
Did you see?
If-
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna put
I
it side by
apologize.
side,
I
though.
keep
Tell me-
thinking you're finished.
Sorry.
Go
not
ahead.
the
Keep
same.
on. No,
I
it's
tend to
fine.
be slow and
No,
thinking
no,
while
please.
I'm
We
talking.
want you to say everything you have to say.
So, if there is the possibility that the trigger was pulled with the thumb, but a portion of the thumbnail is contradictory to that, then you may be able to
Long
reconstruct
lost
or
brothers.
deconstruct a given
Long lost brothers.
position of hands in that scenario.
Are you
Did
kidding
you
me?
see any lead transfer on
at these
the
bastards.
nail, the real nail that you examined?
Not as a streak.
Did you see any lead transfer on the acrylic that you saw? Nail.
No.
And with regard to the positioning, you mentioned now a number of times that it would be important. Were you ever asked to reconstruct the position of Philip Spector in relation to Lana
That's a good
Clarkson
idea.
based on
Oh
her
my God,
hands?
that's hilarious.
It's far exceeding the scope of the hearing. By the way, before I lose the thought, I noticed you were very careful when you said you did not see lead transfer as a streak on, I believe it was the natural nail, or was it the artificial nail?
Either.
Did you see some form of lead on one of the nails? When I say one of the nails, meaning either the natural or the acrylic.
There is dark debris microscopically associated with the underside of the fingernail. I did not determine if that was carbon that could be associated with smokeless powder, because there's also carbon associated with things like fingerprint powder. What was more probative to me was something like smokeless gunpowder, where you're actually seeing the shape and you can relate it to a discharge of I'm going to say bullet, that's probably the improper term, to an actual discharge and separation of the projectile.
All right.
And did you ask the coroner's office whether what type of fingerprint powder they used?
No.
Okay. Based on what you did see, did you draw any opinion based on a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that the nail, the acrylic nail, had been hit by a bullet?
I didn't draw any conclusion about what caused the damage to the fingernail.
Did you see any evidence that the nail or the acrylic was hit by a bullet?
I found the. Oh no.
No, other than it's broken and we don't know how it's broken. I didn't see a lead streak, for example. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It means there's no positive evidence that it did happen.
We're getting wigs today, one way or the other.
Now, moving to a final area. You also looked at the right shoe of Ms. Clarkson, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and can you see that from here? Would you like the original? We've marked this.
Next in order, which
Next in order, Your Honor.
purports to be
31.
a black shoe with a ruler, and it's 31?
31.
Okay. And that's a coroner's picture. It says right, item 86A on the picture itself, so we can try to later identify it. Did you, maybe that's not a coroner's picture. I apologize. That's your picture, Ms. Harold. I apologize. I'm giving copyrighted, trademarked information to the wrong people. Okay, that's your picture, correct?
That was actually taken by our photo studio at my direction.
At your direction. And that is the right shoe of Lana Clarkson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to that, you also looked at... and
Camera cuts to Phil
this next order.
live in the courtroom.
Next in order would be 32.
Same stare. Tell me it's not the same stare. Tell me that's not Phil Spector's stare. I dare you.
With 03,
I dare you.
07 in the picture showing 2 feet, particularly the right side of the right shoe of Ms. Clarkson before she has been disrobed. Okay. You did look at that picture, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And at whose direction did you look at that picture?
Where are we going?
Judge, there's another particle that's missing.
A particle of what?
Of white. on the bottom of the shoe.
You know, if we could just sort of get directly, if you're asking if this could, if some particle possibly could be part of a shoe as opposed to a fingernail, that would be relevant to what we're doing here. But if you got right to it, it would help.
I can get right to it.
Thank you.
great.
I'm going to allow you to. Go ahead.
When I said I looked at everything looking for the missing fingernail, I wasn't kidding. And that is something that is adhering to the outside right of her shoe. It's seen at the scene, it's seen at the coroner's office. Because I had the shoe, and it does have 3 white triangles as part of the decoration, I was able to do what is called generated internal scale and know that roughly the size of that material. It is way too big to be any part of the missing acrylic fingernail. That particle was no longer associated with the shoe when I received the clothing. One possibility is the shoes were fairly new, and on the insole, there's actually an adhesive label on the inside of it, and on the right shoe, that adhesive label is loose and missing, and you can see the adhesive up the side. My best guess was that was part of the adhesive label because it is equivalent in size. However, you're correct. I don't have the object, so I couldn't tell you for a fact that's what it is. I can only tell you it's too large to be the fingernail, the acrylic nail part missing, and it is too large to be parts of the dental material that are not accounted for.
Okay, and one other thing that when we point to that white particle, you actually even asked people if they had seen it and no one could find it, right?
Correct.
But whatever it is, it's certainly bigger than a quarter.
All right, so we have like a little less than 20 minutes left. I'm going to run upstairs and use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Of an inch of the acrylic nail that's missing.
Yes, I had attempted to measure, and it was much larger than the missing portion of the acrylic nail.
And when you said it was your best guess as to what it is, you don't know what that really was and whether it was helpful, harmful to either side or whatever, correct?
No, I do not.
Because you didn't have it, and I would imagine the same principles apply. Because you didn't have it, you couldn't look at it and couldn't examine it.
Correct.
Okay. Can I just have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Judge, I just have one other area, and perhaps you can guide me if I'm off base on that. I'm sure you will. I'd like to know.
You're right.
I'm sure you will too. Should I ask? I'd like to know whether she looked at the items that are part of this hearing that were sent back by Dr. Lee.
That you can,
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Did you look at the items that were sent back by Dr. Lee a few months ago to the lab?
Only briefly. I received the items, I opened them to itemize what it was. I received the items with no reports and no photographs. It is my policy not to do anything with an item till I know what it is and why I have it.
Are these the outside of the items you're talking about? And if they are, we will mark this. Let's see, what are we in next order?
33 would be the next.
33. And this is two pictures. It says Phil Spector house, bloodstained threads, and bloodstained on stairs. Just for so that we have an idea of what the picture is. Would you like to see closer?
No, I recognize it.
Okay.
That is what I received.
Okay. And did you open them?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember when you opened them?
October 16th, 2006.
Okay. And did you make any notes from October 16, 2006 to now about those items?
The only notes that I've made is that it was received that date, that it was opened, and it's been waiting because I had no reports. I had no idea what they were or why I had them. It wasn't until several months later that we received a report or notes indicating what they could be, and it wasn't until these last 2 weeks that we received anything that was a photograph of what it supposedly is.
Okay, so when you received the report in February, did you make any notes and go back and make any notes?
No.
Is your testimony that as to today, you still have no notes on these items?
No.
No, it's not your testimony, or no, you have no notes?
No, I have no notes other than it was received, opened, that I found one to be a broken up blood stain and one to be red carpet fibers with 2 pieces of apparently bloody tissue paper.
Okay, when you just say that you found one to be an apparent blood stain, did you look at it under the microscope or stereo microscope? Or did you just do it? Yes.
With the low magnification.
Did you, isn't your procedure in the lab to make notes whenever you do a stereo?
Your Honor, this is not a discovery hearing. What she did with these items that we received late in discovery pursuant to many, many, many requests is not an issue. I think she will testify if the court were to ask her, were either one of these things consistent with any kind of a nail material that may or may not be missing, her answer would be no.
Well, her description clearly eliminates those possibilities. More importantly, we're getting far afield. The only question is that the only reason I'm even allowing you to ask these questions is the possibility that these items that were set by Dr. Lee could be the items that we have been talking about, and by the description, there is no way. So I don't see any further purpose to be served by continuing to go into it.
Well, Judge, I just have one more question on that, and I think that would help.
I'll allow you to ask a
Okay.
question.
Do you know with what you looked at when you got them, whether or not the items were in the same condition in terms of the color from the time they were picked up from the time you got them?
Objection, it's irrelevant.
She wouldn't be able to answer that question since all she has is 2 items. She wouldn't know if they were in the same condition.
Well, I thought Your Honor just said something to the effect that by her description, they would
But
be
the description of the items is clearly inconsistent with the only purpose of this hearing. They don't match. I know there has been other testimony concerning clumps of things taken, but it's not at all consistent with Ms. Kaplan's testimony. It's not even close.
Your Honor, if I may, there is, where's the picture go? On here. The bottom right area, which is white and bloodstained now, and I'm going to represent to you, there's going to be questions about what that looked like before it got into the bindle, where there was a lot of other blood. So whether or not she made any analysis of...
Does that look flat to you?
That looks like, that portion up top, absolutely white. There, absolutely.
Well, it's a whitish piece of tissue with blood on it is what it is.
Absolutely.
Whether it looks flat or not, that depends on who looks at it, but
When you say tissue, do you mean tissue, human tissue, or tissue paper?
tissue paper. And I believe that's the witness's testimony. That's what she opened up and saw.
Okay. Let me just...
Bloodstain.
Give me a moment.
Before you look, can we just mark this, see housekeeping?
No, let's hold off, please.
Okay.
Word is that there's another camera angle in the works here. What did I miss? What's going on? Is everybody so quiet? What the hell's going on? Oh God, I missed something fiery? What'd I miss? What's going on? I missed some spice, didn't I? I could already feel it in the room.
I was looking for Ms. Kaplan's description of the item, which takes place at page 1672 of the transcript. What is your question? What is your best description of it other than white thing? And the answer, it was flat with uneven edges. That's all I remember. And then she goes on to indicate it appeared to be solid as opposed to liquid. And when she was describing the size, I know took place at some point.
Thumbnail.
I'm just looking for her testimony.
Trying. I'm working on a live
Well, I
shot
can't
of Phil
find it this
Spector
time. In any event.
in the courtroom right now, folks.
Okay.
Be just a moment.
Do you have any information that's going to allow you to say that was the object that Ms. Kaplan's describing? Is this piece of tissue paper?
Judge, it actually goes to whether this was in the same condition, whether she knows whether this was in the same condition as she received it as when it was picked up. And we all know the answer to that, obviously.
She can't know.
Exactly. So,
Well, then why ask the question where there's an obvious answer?
because I have to make a record. I can't testify.
You don't have to make a record. She can't testify to something she's not aware of. Okay, that's fairly simple.
There we go.
I omitted one question on the tape
Darn,
lift,
not fucking
Ms.
around
Harold,
again.
before we examine the tape lift of the dress. In your report in March 2004, you indicated that no smokeless gunpowder particles were observed in the adhesive. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And you have no further reports in this
Live shot
matter?
of Phil Spector.
No, I believe that
And
you
we can
have
cut to randomly.
everything via the DA's office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Anything?
I have no questions for Dr. Harold. I would bring up one point with regard to, I think that should settle down in just a second. No? Yeah, there we go. With regard to the packaging, I think Ms. Kaplan was pretty clear that the item, the flat white item with uneven edges that she saw picked up off the ground with tweezers by Dr. Lee was placed in a glass vial.
That's correct.
Last she saw of it was in that glass vial. I would draw the court's attention to where it states, number one, this is a folded, as best I can describe it, it looks like a folded Post-it note or possibly a folded part of an envelope. Number one, blood-stained threads.
Alan Jackson, finger alert.
2403 HLR, Henry Lee, I believe, is, or maybe that's HL, rather.
Yeah, I love this
Henry
judge.
Lee,
I really do.
with his either signature or initials. Nothing close to a glass
does
vial.
not
Well,
mess around.
that's all for when Dr. Lee testifies. Seems to me that'll help, but it's premature.
Fine.
All right. Anything further from Dr. Harold?
No.
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Harold.
Thank you for being here. You may step down. Any other witnesses? Or should we recess this part of the hearing until we hear from Dr. Lee?
Can we recess this part of the hearing and get back to the trial of Phil Spector?
That's fine.
For exhibits, but just
I think I see why this lasted for
had
6
some
months.
additional photographs that I wanted to go through. Okay.
Rang the jury. That is right. Let's go.
I don't know, these have not been marked at this point, but there would be a stipulation that
Anytime the judge goes off on somebody.
Respect my house.
Damn right.
this photograph was taken, and that person in the photograph is Mr. Renteria.
Yeah, this is a long one, Cromp Spice.
Examination, what we call the
That's why I'm
luminol
adding
visit.
an extra day
It's
on
of the foyer
Tuesdays.
area of the Specter home, and Mr. Renteria is
through this
wearing
thing. Plus, Murder Church
white
fucking
pants
rules.
and tennis shoes. We'd ask to be marked next door. We'll stipulate
Well, we need
that this
another
is the second day or the second visit as he testified.
Rang the wig.
No, can I just...
All right.
That's about how it feels, Gabby. Let's fucking go. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Get him in here. Where the wig boy? Yeah.
Well,
Let's
you
get
can
him
mark it
in
as
here. Where the wig boy?
C34. Court's 34.
35.
What a wig boy. What
No, it is 30.
a wig boy at?
I don't have a 34.
Live shot. He is still lurking. Phil is still lurking. That is the same dude. That's the same eyes that glare at every one of these people that come through here. Both witnesses got this look. Tell me I'm wrong. It's getting more real by the second for me as I look at that.
And what I'm focusing
Live
my
feed.
attention on is there's two, we're frozen here. How do we unfreeze? There's that-
Hello,
on the
kitties.
stair here, at this time, you see some white particles both on the ground and on the stair that weren't in the original photographs where the placards were present.
Well, there's white objects in the photograph. I would also note that there's also what, if you could call them white objects, it might be from the negative, it might be actually the way it appears. It may be stain missing on the bookcase, the staircase, I'm sorry, that has similar size objects, but they can't be laying flat because they're on an edge. So as to what they are, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any suggestions to what they are or aren't. They're just in the picture that they weren't in the picture before. So this picture would be number what?
The next in order is 34.
Yes.
Okay, and then finally, next in order 35, which is a picture done at the time they did the sound test of this same area. And again, the court has the glossies of various things that are shown in there, particularly on that first step.
Okay.
Okay, and that would be 35.
Okay.
Stipulate?
I don't need to. I mean, the photo speaks for itself.
Well, I know. I could call him back to get it tested.
No, I'll stipulate that
that's fine.
that's what that photograph is.
Very good, that's fine. That's all
Okay.
fine.
All right, anything further?
Not as to the evidence issue here.
Okay, do people have any witnesses today?
No.
All right, I think we are now to the point of
Where are we,
related
Judge?
issue, which sort of started this to some degree, is the prosecution's motion to preclude testimony and evidence received less than 30 days before trial. So it's the people's motion. How would you like to proceed on that?
Sure. Let me shift gears here.
Okay?
If we have 5 minutes, would that be okay? Run
Sure.
the
Let me take a 5-minute
And
break.
what's 5
No
minutes
problem.
in the sea of 6 months that we're laying
Now,
in here?
these photographs that I was following along, one of them is an exhibit because it's, well, I think it's an exhibit, it's marked 23, and there's also 29. And the others do not have numbers, and I believe they were just for my convenience. Why don't I give those back to you
That's fine.
before we get confused?
Okay, we're about to go into the next one. Thanks everyone for being here. We're going to take a quick little break. I want to do some shout outs. The next video is an hour long. The judge and counsel discuss exhibits outside the presence of the jury for an hour. And yeah, well, let's check in on him, Phil, how he's doing. Oh, he's still right there, hanging and banging. Phil, do you have anything to say for yourself at all? What is Phil doing? Phil's just sitting there. He's staring at everybody. It's getting weird. It's getting crazy. Oh, God. Whew. Yeah, Phil Spector is an actual ghoul from hell and probably in hell right now. If there's a hell, Phil Spector is definitely there right now. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out here this morning. I really appreciate it. Murder Church in full swing. This is a wild trial, spicy trial, too, as you can already kind of get the vibe of that. Let me do a little bit of shouting out real quick. Tamzilla coming through here this morning, membered up right here, buzzed and confused style. I think I already shouted her out, but she's going to get a little bit more love this morning coming through.
Welcome to the party.
Love that. Thank you very much. What else we got happening here? Right after that, aspiring court reporter Sarah came through with a $9.99. Thank you so much, Sarah. Freaking appreciate that for the JIP fund. And I'm sorry that you missed Feral Friday. Feral Friday was an insane experience. If anybody hasn't seen some of the clips that's already floating around out there, oh my God. Give me the loot. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. And then Bo Peep coming through here, $4.99, coming through and dropping a little bit into the bucket. Thank you so much, Bo Peep. I really appreciate it. Give me the loot. We ain't fucking around, huh? We ain't fucking around. And the defense attorney now coming through with the $5 when I turned myself into an old school screensaver there for just a moment. That was well worth it because that was amazing as well. Good idea. Thank you so much. Coming through. We ain't fucking around here on Publicly Buzzed. Tell your friends that you hang out over here. And yeah, we're going to keep moving along. I also found out that we have to sue somebody. Maybe two people. I was tagged. Yeah, Holly Berry put it up. I remember we found that on Feral Friday. Some television show, something is making a joke, and they used the reference Murder Church. Okay. And then found out there's a band called Murder Church. All right. These sons of bitches are going to relinquish that name because it is ours. All right. I have to have some kind of religious write-off because of this, right? Like, I've got to be able to get by this somehow or another for religious purposes. Come on, Murder Church is for the people. So let's calm down here, okay? Let's just simmer down real quick. Anybody that did not see Feral Friday, I am going to do a quick little intermission with that clip. I want to thank Gambies for pulling that out, and we're going to continue down this road. But first, I do want to show this because every time I've watched it, it actually murders me. I want to watch it again. Hold on. We were fucking watching some James Brown clips, and Dan goes off screen. So Dan goes off screen, and on Feral Friday, we play music over on Kick. We hang out, we have a good time. So I was playing some music, was playing some James Brown's, and then all of a sudden Dan goes off screen because he's going to get a wig, he gets some props. I need to get a wig also for this fucking trial, or buy a wig or something. That'd be sweet. And he comes back looking like this. All right? So he wasn't expecting to be... So right after the video, when he stepped off, the music ended, and then I was like, oh man, have you guys ever seen this insane James Brown clip when he's on the news? And if you guys haven't ever seen this clip, it's fucking madness. It's crazy as hell. So this is what happened. I'm trying to make sure that I don't appear on the
Well, I went and got a bunch of props. I thought we were doing music, and now I look like an idiot.
We're still doing this. We're still doing music. I wanted to show this video. Dude, this interview's insane. This interview's insane. Oh, God. Holly Berry's, she's about to crack down hard. Whew. It's all with the hell. Everything with the hell.
I'm fucking crying, dude.
Okay. Okay, hold on. This review's crazy.
It's going wrong.
Like this throughout
Nothing wrong at all.
Oh my God.
I'm crying, dude. That's the Danny Savage effect, baby. It's the Dandy Savage effect. Every time I look at you now, I can't compose myself.
Can I take it off? I can't take this. This is ridiculous.
Dude, okay. You're killing me right now. It looks like you have a massive head wound, and you're like...
It looks like a bandage, doesn't it? Fuck. I can't find the actual headband.
It looks like you have a massive head wound. My jaws hurt. Oh my god.
I'll take the headband off.
Okay, so yeah, that's what happened. And yeah, that was one of the coolest things that's ever happened ever. It was just completely organic, man. He just came back and we were freaking lost, and I couldn't compose myself. Oh my god, let me get this back in order. Whew. And every time I watch it, it's freaking hilarious. I don't even know what's going on, guys. Whew. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out today, this morning. Appreciate it. We're going to continue down this road. Let's check in on Phil. Is Phil still hanging out? Of course that creepy bastard is. Let's go. Let me fix the sound before I screw that up.
Mr. President, is heretofore. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Does the court mind if I stay seated for purposes of our discussion?
No.
Okay. Just as a recap.
That was weird. Alan Jackson said, "Do you mind if I stay seated for the purposes of our discussion?" The hell?
I know it's been a while since we've all talked about these things and looked at them. I know it's been a while since I have. Basically, as a recap of the people's position, I'll state the following. The discovery cutoff date in this case was February 16th, 2007. With a few exceptions, things that are learned after that date. Obviously, immediate discovery is required under 1054. But anything that's intended to be used by either party, if it's known by that date, should have been turned over by February 16th, 2007. The people long in advance of that have complied with that requirement. I think to date we've turned over just this side or just that side of 9,000 pages of discovery to the defense over the course of several years. On March 11th, 2007, well into this trial, or well into the discovery date, we received for the first time a report from a woman, or a reporter, of a statement by a woman named Jennifer Hayes. That report had been in the defense possession since March of 2006. On March 24th, 2007, we received reports of interviews and statements by John Behrens. The defense had been in possession of those statements for some 3 years. On April 16th, 2007, we were first notified of a lost box of discovery that the defense claimed to have in their possession, which contained, ultimately, we found out some...
All right, somebody did do it really well. Oh my God, holy shit. Did you do this, CH? Is this you? Holy crap, this is better than the one I did. That one's pretty good. Holy shit, yeah. That one took a little bit better. It looks like you've just put it on there better. That is what we're looking at, folks.
16 reports.
I can't get over it.
Those reports were dated from February of 2004.
I was in the Discord Murder
April
Church
of 2007.
Anybody wants to hang out in the Discord? I'm going to put a link if you're not in there already.
By Pumpkin Pie.
Been getting some discussions going in there.
Of statements by Jennifer Hayes, a statement by Heather Wimet, we had heretofore never heard of, a statement by David Shapiro.
Of course, we do have the live feed of Phil.
We were unaware of the existence
right
of David
there.
Shapiro. We were unaware of this particular statement. And then we received some partial pages that appeared to be parsed out. Either we didn't have the beginnings of them or we didn't have the ends of them.
Still creeping
And
everyone
there were
in the room.
references in all of that discovery, in these 16 reports, to letters and photographs that were referred to by various and sundry people. Finally, on April 7th, 2007, we received information that there existed a voicemail from one John Behrens. And John Behrens is referred to in some of the reports in the lost box as well. We immediately asked for this voicemail to be turned over. Heretofore, we have yet to receive that. We have received some information of I think it's a transcript, what can best be described as a transcript of this voicemail. Regarding the lost box, reports from, and what's so disconcerting, I guess, about this lost box is that it only appears to be lost from us. The defense does not appear to have lost it at all. We're all pretty savvy at circumstantial evidence, and I would simply ask the court to note the following. The reports date from 2004 to 2007, as I just indicated. Wherever that box was lost, it appears that the defense has systematically been able to find it anytime they want to. Between 2004 and 2007, when someone finally came to their senses and said, hey, you know what, we probably ought to turn this over to
It has been quite the morning.
Items from the lost box were taken out. There are fax stamps on the items, on some of the items. It appears that those items were faxed between and among defense counsel. At least one on April 7th, at least another on April 9th of 2006. Then those items were put back in this lost box because they forgot when they put it back in the box that it had a fax stamp on it. Then the box was eventually turned over and claimed, hey, you know what, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Dixon, we didn't realize that this box was around. Shame on us. Here's the stuff that was in it. The problem with that is that, for instance, the Jennifer Hayes statements have fax copies or fax stamps on them from Miss Kenny Bodden's fax machine. And those date back to 2006. So the lost box wasn't really lost. And the items in it were taken out and put back, reviewed, faxed among themselves, and ultimately ended up in our possession well beyond the discovery deadline. Additionally,
that's true, man.
The photographs that, and this goes back to some of the photographs that the court has now seen. I objected to several of these photographs in the defense opening statement until we had an opportunity to fully litigate this issue. The photographs that Dr. Harold referred to as she believed they were around 30, those are actually the 55 photographs from Dr. Lee that we received, I believe, on Friday, April 27th, which was a week ago, last Friday, 2007. The discovery statutes are very clear, notwithstanding counsel's very interesting interpretation of 1054 and his discovery obligations. I think Mr. Plord cited that his discovery obligations, I've never heard a more stretching interpretation of a Supreme Court opinion, that his discovery obligations don't actually begin until we've completed all of our discovery obligations. Which, in point of fact, Your Honor, I don't want to beat this dead horse because I believe it does redound with ridiculousness. Because my discovery obligations are ongoing, and if someone walks through that door right now and says, Mr. Jackson, I've got information to tell you, for instance, I don't know, somebody like Gregory Diamond, I would have an obligation to present that to the defense, which I've consummately adhered to, and Mr. Dixon has consummately adhered to. Anytime someone comes up with any discovery, we have an obligation to keep going. So taking that logic to its extreme, Mr. Plord's logic to its extreme, there would de facto be no discovery obligation on the part of the defense. They wouldn't have to turn over anything ever because our discovery obligation never ends. That having been said, these systematic discovery violations by the defense appear at this point not to be something that was just overlooked, or things that were overlooked, or things that slipped between the cracks. These appear to be things that were specifically designed to advantage them and disadvantage us. Mr. Dixon and myself can only be spread so thin to interview witnesses or go forward with investigations when we get reports from, say, Jennifer Hayes, or Pumpkin Pie that we've never seen, or John Barron's that we've never seen, or amazingly enough, from Henry Lee, 55 new photographs that our experts now don't have time to look at, that our experts now don't have time to analyze. And I would, specifically with reference to Henry Lee's 55 photographs, draw the court's attention to the following. In his notes, Henry Lee refers to several photographs, and I don't have his notes in front of me, but I believe I'm safe in saying he refers to 3 photographs or 3 items that in his notes indicate the word photo underneath them, possibly 4. In a letter to Leslie Abramson, Dr. Lee refers to his crime scene investigation and the time that he was actually at the crime scene, and he indicates to Leslie Abramson, I've attached 3 photographs, the 3 photographs to Miss Abramson. There are no timestamps on any of the photographs. We didn't receive them until April 27th, although we've been asking for any physical items or any items of photographic evidence that Dr. Lee may or may not have taken since at least 2005. We received them late, and when we received them, some appear to be in odd format. In other words, Judge, when we look at them and we pull them up on a DVD, which is how we received them, some of those appear to have a file name that says scan, which is indicative to me of, I happen to do a little photography in my spare time, which isn't much anymore these days, and it's all your fault, Judge.
And happy to do it.
When I used to take photographs, I would take a photograph with a 35 millimeter SLR, and I would end up getting those negatives printed, and then I would have to scan those negatives into electronic format. And depending on the program that's used, normally it'll have the tagline scan. So it tells me that there are 35 millimeter photographs out there. Of those 55, 18, 20, 25 maybe scanned photographs are scanned files. The others have a very specific electronic file stamp. And if you take digital photographs, you would know that that little card reader that comes out of your digital SLR camera, once it's placed into a receptacle and uploaded onto a computer, is given a file stamp number or file stamp name. And it's usually a series of letters followed by a series of numbers in chronological order. Well, the other half of those photos have those type of file stamps. Thus, we have requested, Mr. Ocampo and myself have requested numerous times that we get the negatives from any 35 millimeter photos that were taken, because the photos that we got are in some cases very, very poor quality, and the electronic file format in its original format, so that we can find out if in fact these photographs were all taken at the same time or at later times, because as the court may know, Dr. Lee has had access to the castle and the areas surrounding the castle since day 1, since day 2. And all of a sudden we find out, oops, it appears that Dr. Lee isn't going to have the negatives either. Those negatives were given off to another lawyer at another time, and oh my goodness, I can't seem to find those negatives. At least that's the last information I have, unless Mr. Plord has new information that I'm not aware of. So it appears that one thing after another, after another, after another seems to be going wrong with the defense. And the prosecution is left holding the bag with brand new evidence that we've never heard of, brand new witnesses we've never heard of, brand new photos we've never seen, file stamps and photos that seem to be odd in their compilation, and we can't investigate that fully. We've never received the raw notes or the original notes from Dr. Lee. We've now asked for the raw notes from some of the investigators that have investigated or taken these statements from these 16
Vince definitely feels
that appear in this lost box. I've been told this as late as this morning that Mr. Plord doesn't believe that I'm entitled to those raw notes, or at least if I am, they're going to be heavily redacted, notwithstanding the fact that we have an obligation to go out and investigate and vet this information. Then comes Dr. Lee's appearance on court TV. At the back end of all of this, I give my opening statement, based in no small part on the investigation of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, based on the strategies and decisions that Mr. Dixon and myself have determined best fit the prosecution of this case, and based in no small part on representations by the defense as to what their case may or may not include, and what their experts may or may not say, what their experts have indicated in reports. Although we've never been given access to interview any of these experts, I was given certain reports. I finished with my opening, and later that afternoon, I see Dr. Henry Lee plastered all over court TV talking about certain conclusions and opinions and analysis that he has that I have never heard of. Not in his notes, not in his books, not in his reports, not in oral statements that were given over to me, nothing. I've never heard this information. This 72 inches that Dr. Lee so prominently was willing to talk about on court TV. The next morning, Ms. Linda Kinney-Bodden stands up to give her opening statement, and lo and behold, Ms. Linda Kinney-Bodden echoes Dr. Lee's remarks about this 72 inches that the blood spatter travels. And Ms. Bodden took me to task, if you will, by saying whoever gave me my information was wrong, and by implication stupid, and by implication incompetent. I can tell the court, you're an experienced trial lawyer yourself, if I had known that Dr. Lee was going to come to this opinion or testify to these conclusions or analyses, I probably would have taken that into consideration in my opening statement. Now that cow is out of the barn. Notwithstanding, that is yet again a Dr. Lee discovery violation. If in fact he had that opinion, if he had that conclusion, if he had come to that analysis, or if he had come to his conclusions by way of analysis, I was entitled to that. If he intends to take the stand and say that in front of this jury, I was entitled to that well before he decided to plaster that all over court TV after I had given my opening statement. And something tells me that when he talked to his publicist, he was pretty savvy about when he was going to make his statement. And he knew that when my butt was in the chair, I couldn't get back up and take him to task for that statement. I go through all this as an indication, Your Honor, that I don't take my discovery obligations lightly. The reciprocal discovery rules exist for a reason. We have been prejudiced by the fact that the defense doesn't appear to give a hoot about their discovery obligations. We don't have time to interview these witnesses that we would have interviewed. Certainly, we don't have time to do it as thoroughly as we would have done it previously. My opening statement is my opening statement. It is what it is. And look, you know, like they say in the military, we'll adjust and figure out what our next point of attack is with regard to Dr. Henry Lee. However, I don't believe that any of these mistakes, when taken cumulatively, can be deemed to be mistakes. It appears that this is a systematic effort to prejudice the people and then go back and say, hey, you know what, we've had so many lawyers, and I guarantee when Mr. Plord or Ms. Kinney-Bodden or Mr. Brunon stands up to speak, eloquently as they will, I guarantee one or the other is going to say something about the other lawyers in this case, and we can't be held responsible. Well, I guess I would implore the court, we, the prosecution, can't be held responsible. Mr. Spector has chosen to change lawyers and to do this over and over and over. It is incumbent upon them to maintain their discovery obligations, their legal obligations, notwithstanding how many people get their fingers in the cookie jar. I'll submit.
Thank you. Defense?
Yeah, briefly, Your Honor, I won't repeat information that we set forth in our pleadings, but I wanted to go over just sort of item by item. There were certain reports that we turned over late. I'm not going to sit here and say that we should be excused for that, so I offer nothing more than just an explanation as to what we think happened. Essentially what was going on during this time period is we were producing a lot of scientific discovery, other discovery, and we were deciding whether to put some of these people on the witness list. If the court has had an opportunity to review a lot of these statements of Ms. Laughlin and these other people and look at the reports, basically it's a close call whether we'll call all of these witnesses, but apparently the decision was made to call or to put them on the list, which then necessitated a discovery obligation that we didn't meet. And we don't have an excuse for that. Basically, they were misplaced. Different people maybe didn't know who was going to be put on the list, and that's what triggers the discovery obligation, and we take responsibility for that as being a violation of discovery in the sense that some of the witnesses, Ms. Hayes was apparently not known to anybody. I'm not sure how we found out about her. I believe we heard about her from Ms. Miss Laughlin Pumpkin something, and
Cutler ain't
she's
there
named
today
in that
either.
report or reports, and that led to
Spicy
her. She was a friend of Lana Clarkson, etc. Much of what she has to say is not all that significant, but we believe a little bit of what she has to say is. As to most of the witnesses, the people were not only aware of them, they interviewed them. We had no reason to, we weren't trying to gain a tactical advantage by not turning it over on time. We simply made an error in not getting those to the people in a timely manner as required by the discovery statute. And again, I'm not saying that we should be excused for that, but we did it inadvertently, and we'll just leave it at that. Mr. Jackson goes through all the other discovery, and there's mention in these reports that, for example, in Mr. Barone, he says that in his report, this is a witness that they talked to, I believe Mr. Barone was spoken to many times. He says, when we interview him, hey, I have a tape of Lana Clarkson that she left on my voicemail in the weeks prior to her death. We asked him to get a copy of that. Mr. Rosen tells Mr. Dixon about that, about the first week of April. We finally get that actually in our possession about the third week of April. We immediately sent it out to get it transcribed. We actually get the tape, back to listen to it and look at the transcript on the 27th, the day they have it in their motion. And we offer them a transcript. We say, if you want the recording itself, after listening to it, we said, we don't think we're going to use it. But we give them a transcript of it, and we tell them, if you want the tape, and this is a tape that they're complaining about that we got our copy of on the 27th. And they've never asked for the actual recording because we advised them that we didn't think there was much to this as far as us using it or not. In any event, we're not even obligated to give that to you because we didn't get it actually to evaluate it till the 27th of April, the day they filed their motion, and we decided after listening to it, there's nothing to it. They have a transcript of it, and we don't have an obligation to provide it anyway unless we decide to use it, and we haven't done that. And the same is true of the photographs. People give us stuff all the time. We've got other tapes from other people that we're not turning over because we're not going to use it. That doesn't mean we have to give them everything. It's not exactly 100% equivocal. In other words, they give us all tapes of everything, no matter what, but we give stuff that we have to use or that we decide to use. And that's essentially the way the discovery law is. And the same is true of the photographs for Dr. Lee. We got those, I believe, the 12th of April. We actually got them. There were some fax copies, the ones that he referred to.
Thanks for hanging, everybody. Really appreciate it.
That were not very usable, but that's all we had. But we didn't get the actual digital CD-ROM until the 12th. In fact, we brought it up with the court that week before the jury came back on the 16th, and Mr. Jackson said, look, we didn't get this, we want it. I said, hey, we just received it, we're going to make a copy. We gave it to him the very next day. We gave it to him within 24 hours of when we actually physically got it. Under the law, there's no specific requirement that we provide photographs that an expert takes. Now, if we decide to use them, then we have to provide them. But we didn't even get them until April 12th. And we gave them all of them on the 13th. They've had them for almost a month now. Now, the court mentioned the other day that there was some unpublished decisions that say you have to give these over, or at least the trial courts have been sustained in making an order like that. Well, there's been no order that we turn over the photographs until, well, we already turned them over. There was no order. It was just generally you comply with the discovery laws, which we feel we were doing. When we get those photographs, we turn them over. Mr. Jackson mentions notes. Sunday, I get an email from him. We want your tapes and your notes of your witnesses. I wrote them back yesterday saying, I'm going to look into tapes. I don't know whether investigators have tapes or not. There have been 4 or 5 investigators working on this. I'm going to check for tapes of witnesses that we're going to call, check for investigators who have notes, go through those notes. If there's anything in there that's discoverable on the law, he's going to get them. If there's opinions or conclusions or editorial comments, we're not going to give you those. Those we feel are going to be work product. But as to the statements of witnesses, so be it. Then we get to the issue of the negatives and the original electronic file stamp. The court has said, notwithstanding what the discovery law says, Dr. Lee brings those with him. We've advised Dr. Lee to do that. We expect he will do that. Whatever he has, he will bring with him. Now we get to the issue of Dr. Lee's 72-inch or more statement, which is what Ms. Kenny indicated in her opening remarks. And to understand the genesis of that, that's not something specific to this case. That's just a general principle about the type of blood spatter that we're dealing with in this or any case like it, is that they made a statement, which was nowhere in Dr. Harold's reports, that blood spatter only goes a maximum of 3 feet, I believe, her at least according to Mr. Jackson, her testimony would be. Now, Lynn Harold doesn't say in any of her reports that blood spatter only goes 3 feet, any more than Dr. Lee says it can go 72 inches or more. Those are general principles that may or may not apply to this case, depending upon the facts or circumstances of this case. And essentially, Dr. Harold, for example, she looked at all of these items. She says, I found blood spots on this garment, that garment, but she doesn't say where everybody was and how far away they might have been. She does elaborate upon that in her grand jury testimony, but in her reports, she doesn't say that. She just says, there's blood spatter on this garment, there's blood spatter on this garment. She doesn't compare one garment to the other in her reports. She simply says, in her grand jury testimony, I looked at this, I looked at that, it's probably within this range, but that's testimony as opposed to her reports or notes. And the same would be true of Dr. Lee. He, in his reports, details out where the blood spatters are, what they look like, and different things like that. So it depends on the question that you ask when you have an expert who says, well, in general, how far does blood spatter go? Well, it depends on all these circumstances. Then they explain that. There's really no definitive rule that is generally applicable to every kind of blood spatter. It depends on various circumstances that
love a lurker, majestic
to a particular
unicorn.
case.
Thank you for hanging and banging.
The comment in the people's motion regarding Dr. Lee and this experiment, there was no experiment done in this case relative to the facts and circumstances of this case. There was no recreation as to interoral gunshot wound, blowback blood spatter, as that term was used by Mr. Jackson. He's talking about general experiments that are a wealth of knowledge that Dr. Lee has, and I'm sure Dr. Harold has some, regarding how they developed information and developed these general principles. Now, I don't know what Dr. Harold's experimental basis is or foundation is for her opinions. Dr. Lee, I'm sure, because he didn't do any experiment relative to this case. If he did, it would be in his notes, and his notes were timely provided along with his reports. He's talking about experiments that have been done years before, some of them not even by him, but that were just reported in the scientific literature. And Ms. Kinney, at the conclusion, as a result of Mr. Jackson's opening remarks, called up Dr. Lee and said, look, they said that this blood spatter can go a maximum of 3 feet. Dr. Lee says no, 72 inches or more, depending upon the circumstances. In other words, that's the real disagreement. It's sort of a take away the facts of this case as a theoretical or analytical issue when it comes to blood spatter. There's a disagreement as to those 2 points. Now, why there is, I really don't know. But that's what Dr. Lee advised Ms. Kinney of, and that's what went into her opening statement. She did a memo regarding her conversation with Dr. Lee, and that statement, that's been provided to the people. It was provided about a few days later, and that's basically what the issue is. And it seems like they were arguing that we did some type of an experiment and then we hid that from them. We didn't do any experiment related to this case. Unless there's other more specific questions regarding the photographs or anything else other than that, or the court has any specific questions, Mr. Bruno would like to address the issue of prejudice.
Sure.
Regarding.
Your Honor, obviously this is a complex case. It has many, many lawyers on both sides. It has a lot of investigators, has a lot of reports. And there's not a streamlined and highly rigid hierarchy of authority and responsibility, et cetera.
Giant stick measuring contest is what we got
I would
here.
say, but certainly not on this side. But Mr. Jackson is, in a sense, denigrating his own skill and the skill of the people in his office and the investigators that are available to them.
Better check in on Phil.
Coming to this matter late,
Sort of creepy
out that
bastard.
there was this issue that there was some reports that had not promptly been turned over, but now have been turned over almost a month ago, given the passage of time and the intervening events. It just, mean, I can understand why there would be this poor-mouthing of the circumstance that he finds himself in or they find themselves in. But the fact of the matter is that they're talking about 3 or 4 witnesses that they have, I don't know how many investigators on staff, I would say at least 100. They certainly have access to investigators. Sheriff's Department has numerous investigators. And if what they need to do is go out and re-interview these witnesses, because most of the witnesses came from their sources, the only new one is Hayes, they can do that. Just think of what happened last week with Gregory Diamond. Through whatever mechanism they employed, they made a call, got 2 of the top homicide investigators in the city of Los Angeles Police Department to do a very thorough investigation. So the idea that they are somehow precluded from investigating or getting information that would be relevant to the statements that these people made on a somewhat peripheral issue. I mean, it's important. First state of mind is obviously important, but it's a narrow issue and can readily be investigated. They don't have to go to some remote spot to interview these people. They know how to contact them. They can get their investigators to talk to them. So the one thing missing in all of this is a particularized statement of how they've been hurt. Our position is that this was not purposeful. We have given over, like they've given over thousands of pages. Many of the pages they've given back to us, we've given to them in the first place. So, and we've given them hundreds, if not thousands, of additional items beyond that. So it's not as if we're sitting in some darkened room thinking, you know, let's hide Pumpkin Pie or let's hide Jennifer Hayes, and then we'll surprise them with the fact that we are going to contend that Miss Clarkson was depressed. I mean, that's a well-known fact, and it, as I say, originated with their witnesses. But right now, if the court were to ask, how have you been prejudiced? What problem has this belated
it's the same! They are the same!
Caused you? They haven't said that. They haven't said we can't find them now, or they won't talk to us, or, you know, something that would be sequelae to that to report. And that's because there really isn't any prejudice. It's kind of like a gotcha. And both sides are trying to seek the truth. I mean, what Mr. Jackson says is true. This is an effort to find the truth, and it facilitates the location and ascertainment of the truth to have the information in a timely manner. Well, this is not a 3-day trial that we give it to them on the first day of trial. It's going to be a 3-month trial. They have plenty of time to investigate. They haven't been prejudiced. And the problem of imposing sanctions, they haven't really addressed the sanctions, but it detracts from the ascertainment of the truth, and it punishes a non-guilty party. Mr. Spector had nothing to do with turning these over or not turning them over. He relies on his lawyers to do what should be done, and sometimes the lawyers drop the ball. We're not blaming anybody, our predecessors, our current team. I mean, it just, stuff happens, you know that. So I would think that the initial inquiry was there a violation? 2, what was the nature of the violation? Was it purposeful or inadvertent? And then 3, what prejudice did it cause? And then 4, how can I remedy that prejudice? That would be like a useful matrix in determining what the facts are and what should be done.
When was Dr. Lee's materials, his report, if there is a report, when was it turned over to the prosecution?
I believe I set that forth in my motion.
I know, but I have lots of things right now. I'm asking you before I have to refer to the motion.
I believe it was timely in sometime in February. See, one of the things that was happening, everybody was getting all the scientific information, the reports actually getting done, turned over, the notes, all of those were turned over in February, you know, roughly 30 days before trial, maybe a day or 2 on the other side of it. But I could get specific here. Yeah.
I don't think they're complaining about that, Judge.
I don't know. I'm trying to sort of weigh everything because I'm considering how long Dr. Lee's been on this case.
February 14th.
We got his report and almost every other expert's report. It was amazing. I couldn't believe that the defense could manipulate the U.S. Postal Service this well, literally on the 30th day before the discovery cutoff date.
And sometimes we were getting emailed reports to them that were unsigned, and later we would get them signed versions, basically, when we got the signed versions in the mail.
Correct. So it was somewhere around Dr. Bodden, Dr. Spitz, Dr. Lee, Dr. DeMaio, Souvron. The list goes on and on. There's 13, I think, experts that we ended up getting reports from, all of them within about a 1 or 2 day period on the 30th day before the cutoff, the discovery cutoff period was, which was February 16th or 19th, something like that.
And there were a number of experts that we had look at things that we didn't give reports to because we made decisions right about that time period that we weren't calling them. And that's what we were doing. We're trying to decide, okay, who are we calling, who are we not? And the same was going on with the other lay witnesses. We wanted to first see what their witness list had on it. We got their witness list on February 16th, almost 30 days before trial. At the same time, our witness list was not done. For example, Mr. Rome, he was talking to them. They gave Mr. Rome's statement to Dr. Pena as part of a package of material for him to review. Miss Laughlin, or Pumpkin, whatever her name is, they gave her statements to Dr. Pena, but they don't put either of those people on their witness list. Had they put those people on their witness list, we wouldn't have put them on our list, and we wouldn't have given them any discovery. So until we know on February 16th that they're not on their list, even though they interviewed them, they've given the statements to Dr. Pena to do his evaluation as to manner of death, we can't make a decision as
real quick, scratching my forehead just now made me remember as I was laying down last night. It was like 1 in the morning, but I was laying down to go to sleep. Like the cover was kind of like underneath me, so I was like giving it a big tug to try to just get it out instead of freaking rolling over. And like my hand slipped off the tip of the covers, and because I was kind of like sit up a little bit trying to get the maximum pull, and I just nailed myself right in the forehead with my knuckle. Like it freaking hurt, and it still kind of hurts. I just realized when I touched it there. Dude, I'm lucky I didn't hit myself in the eye or the nose because it was brutal. Like it was like, I was like, Jesus Christ.
As to whether we put them on our list until right after that. So we were scrambling because we needed to know what went on, what didn't go on, and then we have to get the statements to back them up, and it was all going on at
thank you so much, Candy. Appreciate that.
And again,
hell yeah.
We put their names on the list because we realized they weren't on their list. Even though we probably could have cross-examined Dr. Pena on those statements, but we had independent statements, and we, that's what occurred.
Is there any evidence that you presently have that's been requested that you're claiming you don't have an obligation to turn over?
Some. They made a request this morning that we haven't. Well, yet Sunday they made a request for all notes regarding witness interviews. Some we think are discoverable, some we think are not. Obviously, any witness who's not on our witness list is not discoverable. Some of the notes, and I don't know the answer to this yet, I just made a call and left a message for our investigators because we have one now that's been working on the case, but we've had historically about 4 investigators that work for other lawyers, and I haven't had a chance to even talk to them because the request was just made Sunday. They want tape recordings, which I don't know if they exist. I know that the investigator we have working, I talked with her this morning briefly. She says she has no tapes, so I have no reason to believe she does. She does. She's getting her notes together that comport to witnesses that have testified. As soon as I review them, to the extent relevant witness statements are in the notes, we'll give it to them. I haven't had a chance to even look at them or get them at this point. We have some photos that they asked for this morning regarding what some investigator took in 2003. They said, we heard that some investigator who's not on the witness list may have taken photos. I said, well, I don't think that they're necessarily discoverable. Our experts haven't seen them. Our experts haven't looked at them. Our experts haven't evaluated them. And why do we just have a general obligation to give photos from non-witnesses about anything? There are some things that Ms. Clarkson, her friends either showed us or gave us or told us about through witnesses that are not on the list or some that are, that we're not going to use and we don't intend to use, and we don't think we have a general obligation to turn those over, at least from my reading of the discovery statute. I put that in my motion. I've told that to Mr. Jackson and Mr. Dixon. So to answer the court's question, they're contending outside of this discovery motion that there is additional things that we may have that they want. But for example, the recording of Ms. Clarkson, if we were going to use that, we'd turn it over. We've offered to give it to them, even though we're not going to use it. They never asked for the actual recording. After we gave them the statement, my sense is they decided, well, we don't want to use it either. Who cares about it? But we're not trying to hide it. We're not trying to, but we have no obligation to provide it either. We've got no specific obligation. So unless they know of something specific, our position is that
I could probably get in the chair if I wanted to. Hold on. possible. I could sit right next to Alan Jackson. Too bad my chair's there. I don't know if I cut that out a little bit. Me and my buddy. Just me and Alan sitting here chilling. This guy. This fucking guy. Always talking shit. Always with the bullshit. Come on, Judge. Let's go. Let's move on. Let's move on. Always with the bullshit.
Compliance as best we can right now with the discovery obligations and the recent requests that were made just today and yesterday, we're working on.
What items, if any, is the prosecution requesting at this time that you believe you don't have?
Based on the information provided in the lost box, if you will.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was in here bitching earlier about my allergies.
Several of the witness statements, and the genesis for my request for possible tape recordings is how the witness statements are written. These reports are written almost in a bizarre he said, she said fashion. This one particular defense investigator writes the reports almost quoting lines the entire time, and it looks to me like nobody could reasonably do that without tape recordings. So based on that, I've asked for tape recordings and raw notes, the same type of tape recordings and raw notes that we traditionally give over behind witness interviews by the police in our case. I've asked for the same thing. That's what Mr. Plourde was just talking about. He was saying that, or indicated this morning that Tawny Tyndall, I think, has indicated to him that she has no recordings, which I find incredibly confusing based on how her reports are written. 4 or 5 pages of very specific quotes and dialogue. But if that's her position, then that's her position.
Fuzzy Puff, yeah.
I'd like the request to be made of her, and if she has raw notes,
throw a little stank on it.
I was also informed
I enjoy the
this
arguments.
morning.
They have been pretty ridiculous at points, though.
That there may have been a defense investigator who was taking photographs of the events that are at issue in the discovery hearing concerning Dr. Lee, the white item, if you will, Judge. I want those photographs. Ordinarily, they may not be discoverable, and Mr. Plourde could ordinarily be right that if they don't intend to use them, if their experts haven't seen them, so be it. But we're in an odd situation with this evidentiary hearing, and I think the court is entitled to see, the people are entitled to see, if there are additional photographs that could corroborate Sarah Kaplan, that could corroborate Gregory Diamond, that could corroborate Stan White. The court certainly would want to see those, and I understand that those do exist. A series of photographs do exist of those individuals being in the foyer area on February 4th, 2003. That was the reason for my request this morning, not for the trial as much as for the evidentiary hearing. May I have just a moment?
Certainly.
I can't think that Mr. Ocampo and myself cannot think off the top of my head of any other outstanding discovery issues that we've requested and haven't received at this juncture.
And just for the record, I personally delivered the CD-ROM of Dr. Lee's photographs the day after I received it on the 12th of April. It was before we did our final jury selection. Personally delivered on the 13th with the cover letter of Mr. Jackson. CD-ROM, I gave a copy of what we got. And I did it within 24 hours. Now, granted, maybe we should have asked for them before, and in fact, we did ask for them before, but it took time for us to get them and so forth. But I don't think that they are discoverable under the discovery laws. Now, just like when we did our laboratory visit, which we had our experts take photographs, and those photos were timely provided. But then they asked for my photographs that I took when I was there, because Mr. Brunon, myself, Ms. Kinney, we were there. I was taking my own photographs, to document what we were doing. They asked for those. I gave them those just as soon as they asked. But I don't think they were legally discoverable. It just happened to be that, that I took additional photographs. But just because we give it to them voluntarily doesn't give them an entitlement under the law. For example, this last request, one was made Sunday by email, the tape recordings, which Ms. Tyndall indicates she didn't have any tapes. That's all I can tell them. I asked her, she said no. I believe her. I'll question her again to make sure. But that was made
Her
Sunday.
statement was she doesn't have any tapes now, or she's never had any
She
tapes?
did not tape record the interviews at all. In other words, not that she got rid of the tapes.
That's
no.
what I'm asking, okay.
Yeah, I should have made that more clear. I hope I made that clear to Mr. Jackson. She did not tape record those interviews. She took notes, she says, but she says her notes have a lot of her impressions about the witnesses, that the detailed reports, which are extremely detailed, they have, if the court has taken any time to look at these reports of Ms. Laughlin and the other ones, 90% or more, I think the debate is whether 90 or 95% or more is totally irrelevant background material. She puts everything in there. She's a former bank fraud investigator. That's just the way she writes her reports. What can I tell you? But the reality is very little of those reports is actually relevant witness statements regarding issues involved in this case. The fact that they, what they're doing with their life and all this colorful background or whatever stuff is really not admissible, and we're not, but we had to give the whole report because that's what was written. Now, she has notes that back up those reports, but those notes also contain her impressions of the witnesses, maybe demeanor, things that we would tend to ask her later. So what did this witness, what was the attitude of the witness in your opinion? Different things. That has nothing to do with the witness statements themselves. So that's the part that we want to look at to see if we should redact any of that or not, because we think that does kind of fall into a privileged...
Quick plug right here, Fuzzy Puff asking, I've been saying this also, are you going to do Tuesday Murder Church? Yeah, moving forward, unless something else randomly happens on a Tuesday night, yeah, I'm going to do 2 nights of Murder Church now, Sunday and Tuesday, because there's, again, I keep saying it, this trial is insanely long. I'd like to get moving through it. Plus, it's incredibly interesting, and I'm enjoying it. So, and Murder Church rules.
And I haven't gotten the notes yet from the investigator. She's going to be collecting them, and we're going to get those to the people as soon as we get that done. It's going to take us some time, and now we're in trial. The reports themselves have all the meat regarding their interviews and so forth. So I don't think there's anything substantial outstanding that we're not working on, that we're not getting to with reference to this.
The only thing I was going to address, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, I'll try to be as pointed as I can. With regard to the photographs, there is a concept in the law called constructive possession. I don't think the defense can lean on the idea, well, we didn't get these photographs from Dr. Lee, so goodness gracious, as soon as I got them, I gave them to Mr. Jackson. Well, that should fall on legal deaf ears. Who cares when he got them? He knew that Dr. Lee had them. I've been asking for these and asking and asking. I asked Dr. Lee, I looked him right in the eyes at the crime lab in February of 2006 and said, Doc, did you take any photos?
He's making a point. Kelly is making a point.
I said, let me have them. He said, I don't have these. I've given them to the lawyers months and months ago, years ago. He said he gave them to some lawyer that he couldn't remember, whose name he couldn't remember, back in 2003, I think. It was after that that Mr. Sortino, myself, Mr. Ocampo, and every other DA that's had his hands on this case in any way, shape, form, or fashion has been asking for these. So to say, look, we just
he does have good hair, still has fine hair.
Mr. Plord specifically, or Mr. Brunon specifically, that is not a legal argument. With regard to the experiments and or opinions and conclusions...
Good hair.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
We ain't messing around, Alan Jackson. Look at that hair, son.
Concerning Dr. Lee and the 72 inches that we just heard of on court TV. The fact of the matter is, if he relied on experiments, I don't care if he did the experiments in this case or if he did it, did it for a case 10 years ago. It doesn't matter. If he's relying on experiments, that's part of his opinion and conclusion. If our people do the same thing, we have to turn that over. And Mr. Plord makes this statement, well, Dr. Harold's opinions and conclusions are not contained in her report. Page 667 of the grand jury transcript. And this kind of mist-like pattern does not travel far, and this jacket was probably within 2 to 3 feet of the discharging weapon. That's what her statement is. That was timely turned over to the defense, and that's what I said in my opening. That's the way this works. They can't simply say there's generic information out there. If it was so generic, Ms. Kinney Bodden, certainly with her experience, she is a science guru. Why would she have to call Dr. Lee the day I sit down after giving my opening and saying, oh my goodness, I never heard this before. You mean mist-like spatter patterns only go 3 feet? How far do they really go, Dr. Lee? They can't have it both ways. If it's a general scientific precept, then she would know it. She wouldn't have to call him. The fact of the matter is, I should not have
She's like, I'm about to come over there and slap the piss out of this man.
heard that. After I sat down on court
Mad
TV,
mad as hell.
it's offensive to the
Madder than a hornet
precepts
sitting there.
of the reciprocal discovery statutes. That's the problem that we've had. Is it's not a single event, Judge. This has been systematic over and over and over. And for Mr. Brunon to stand up and look, he and I go way back as well. He knows how to try a case. Are you kidding? He mentions, look, how hard can this be? I think he used the word that I denigrated myself. Well,
it is so expensive.
daily, but it's not I didn't with this regard. And then I poor mouth about not getting my discovery. Well, that falls into the legal argument of get over it. Well, Mr. Jackson, so I violated the discovery statutes. Get over it. Well, we may or may not be able to get over it, Judge. I won't know what the actual prejudice is until we get going on this. And the fact of the matter is, Greg Diamond, whom he uses in one of his examples, Greg Diamond comes forward. How many days have we spent vetting Greg Diamond? That's one person.
Sorry, that was.
Now we've got Jennifer
I did not mean
Hayes and
to do
John
that.
Barrett.
It's right below my
Laughlin and
my camera.
The list goes on and on and on.
Thank you so much for that.
I think my point is clear.
Coming through with the $9.99.
We are prejudiced by the fact that we can't do what we should have been able to do before we started trial. Mr. Dixon and myself, we have a date with this court every day. I can't be sending the hundreds and hundreds of investigators that I wish I had out in the field doing this investigation. It's ridiculous. This never should have happened. And Mr. Dixon, myself, the prosecution, the people of the state of California shouldn't suffer because of any incompetence, and present company possibly excluded, any incompetence or purposeful actions on the part of the defense.
Your Honor, could I be heard? I need to stop.
All right.
Just very briefly, and I won't be here. Your Honor, since I was the one, I'm very uncomfortable. Can I stand? I'm uncomfortable addressing
Stand or sit. I told counsel they don't have to stand when they address me. If you want to, that's fine.
I'm uncomfortable for.
I want to stand.
So it just makes me.
This is Southern California.
That's what I've heard, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Jackson gives me a lot of credit, and I really appreciate it, but a statement that blood spatter can only go out a maximum of 3 feet was first indicated in his opening. As a matter of fact, I was really surprised by that, and I thought that I had missed some literature that I had not seen in the past because I was aware of a lot of literature. I was aware of the courses that Ms. Harold had recently attended the previous December. I was aware of what was taught in those courses. I was aware of our opinions, but I had never seen any report, and there is none, that says, talking in a general concept, that blood spatter of this type can go a maximum of 3 feet. So I immediately called our experts saying, this is the first time I'm hearing this from them, and it was the first time, because he didn't say what Lynn Harold said in grand jury. If he said that, that would have been fine. He said that this type of blood spatter can go a maximum of 3 feet. And so, thinking that there may be something new that I even had missed, I called and found that absolutely not. That generally, and it's not an experiment with this case, that generally, depending on the circumstances, this type of blood spatter can go a certain amount of feet, and to just say that it's a maximum of 3 feet would be wrong. And matter of fact, it would be the kind of stuff that I would have questioned Lynn Harold on, and I intend to question her on a cross-examination, because it's general principles. But to say that in this case, that was an indication that it had come from an opinion of an expert that we had not heard from before.
She's really good at, this is the first time I've ever seen her besides being like a talking, or like being on Law and Crime, I think is who she works for. Seeing her actually in this trial, man, she's pretty fucking good. Like, her opening statement had me like literally going like, is something else going on here? But I mean, you know, as you kind of go through, and I'm pretty sure we all know what the fuck really happened, but still, she's
that possibly I missed something that I had never seen before, and therefore it had to be addressed. But it was in general scientific principles, and quite frankly, it didn't even have to be in any report unless it's her conclusion. And I would venture to say that when she gets up and stand, she's not going to say a maximum of 3 feet at all for all this type of blood spatter. I think that was probably a mistake or a misspeak. But therefore, for me not to have to address that in response to something I first heard that is not in her reports and is different than her grand jury when she
ain't in the courtroom today, so I made sure people could still see that son of a bitch.
What this type of general blood spatter can do would have been unfair to Mr. Spector.
Thank you.
People chant the wig, they get the wig.
Yes, go ahead.
Counsel is simply incorrect in asserting that the people are entitled to materials that any expert may have relied upon.
I'm about to address that. So I don't.
I'm about to drop the elbow on your ass.
Well, it's not my
Just,
comment.
hard
It's people
coming in
behind
hot.
comment.
I have Hines. I'm familiar with Hines. It's that if you don't have the site, you can find.
It's 20 Calab 4th, starts at page 1818. The part I was about to quote is at the end of page 1823.
It's a 1993 case.
Well, it certainly hasn't been disapproved
No,
so far.
I'm not saying that in any derogatory fashion. I'm just saying it's a 1993 case.
And Your Honor, when we wrote our papers, it was my impression that, and all I had to go on was Dr. Lee talking to Catherine Cryer, that I assumed that the experiment that he talked about doing, because his words were, we did experiments. We did experiments. And the blood spatter travels a certain distance. So that was the reason for including that in my, I'm well aware of generalized experiments in the world don't have to be turned over, but I was under the impression that Dr. Lee conducted an experiment in this case, and that I would be entitled to.
Had he done it, we would have had notes and reports regarding it, but we as the general scientific community, I don't even know if Dr. Lee, I haven't even asked him whether he's ever personally done it or been involved in experiments regarding this subject. I assume he had, because I've been to seminars 10, 15 years ago where Dr. Lee talks about blood spatter.
Oh, shit,
and
Megan
that's what
coming
these guys,
through.
it's an
What's up, Megan?
experimental-based science. And so,
Hope you're doing good this morning.
but I'm sure it goes to experiments that he's aware of, as well as some that he may have even been involved in. But we're not going to give a report about every one of those. We don't think we're obligated to do that.
First of all, the defense is ordered to turn over to the prosecution any photographs that they may have that have not yet been turned over if, one, they are part of any expert's report, specifically if the expert is going to testify to them, or two, if in any way an expert has relied on a photograph in forming an opinion, whether or not specifically set forth in the report, then you are ordered to obtain and turn over to the prosecution forthwith any such photographs. As to notes, if you have a witness and you have a report and there are original notes, they will be turned over, with the exception that if you are claiming a work product privilege or some other privilege, then you may redact them, but you will provide the originals to me to compare to any redacted version so that I can see that what's redacted is properly redacted and is not discoverable by the
Get in
prosecution.
here. And while he's sitting right there, hold on. This is perfect. Oh my God, are you kidding me? It changed right then and
That's
there.
what I do it to Mr. Jackson.
I'm afraid to even go back. Hold on. No, we're going back. Judge Diehard, right there. Right there. And he's going to say right now, Megan. Welcome to the party, pal. Get the hell in here. Welcome to the party, pal. Bye, Judge Diehard, a.k.a. Bruce Willis. Either way you want to go about it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Murder Church rocking and rolling. Good morning, Crumb on the record. Get in here. Get the hell in here. Hit that like ski if you haven't, folks. Loving it.
All right.
That's what I offer to do to Mr.
We
Jackson.
make our way through these arguments.
At this point, the request by the prosecution is that witnesses be excluded. I'm not willing to do it at this point. I don't see that kind of prejudice, number one. Number two, if you obtain a conviction in this matter, and I have excluded a necessary defense witness, except in extreme circumstances, you can pretty much count on that conviction being overturned. That's an extreme remedy. I am not saying that it doesn't exist. It does, because that's one of the remedies that is spoken of in the appropriate cases, but it is considered to be an extreme remedy, and I haven't yet heard anything that would mandate that. I'll get to other possible remedies in a moment. Also, if Dr. Lee, as to this blood spatter evidence, if he conducted an experiment for the purpose of this case, then that is to be reduced to a report, and that report is to be made available to the prosecution. If in arriving at his opinion, which he conveyed to Ms. Kenny Bodden, then, and all he used was his general background knowledge, that doesn't have to be reduced to anything. That's just part of what he can be cross-examined upon. If he's used books and other things, of course, that'll come out in cross-examination. You can't get every text or every experiment an expert has used unless it's specifically, in my mind, used in this particular case. So if he did something to arrive at the comments he apparently made on national television, if that's in a written report, it's to be turned over. If it was an oral report, then it's either to be reduced to writing or you are to report orally to the prosecution what he did in relation to this case. It depends on the specifics.
Your Honor, I'll represent
literally everything in front of me, and I can't even show
on
it.
Dr. Lee would not have done anything in this case unless we knew about it. In other words,
Then you don't have to worry.
Right. That's
I'm just telling you, if it exists, that's...
In the abundance of caution, I will ask Dr. Lee if he did something without telling us. But the other thing is I would indicate that we provided the curriculum vitae of Dr. Lee, who has published hundreds of different articles on a number of different subjects, including blood spatter.
I
so they know about it. They know about it.
I'm just issuing a ruling.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Now, I have read a majority, or at least one of the more serious concerns of the prosecution as set forth by them, were the additional reports from witnesses that they originally knew about. Ms. Laughlin, there are one or two other witnesses. The reports, which have been filed under seal, and I have to be honest with you, I don't think they can stay under seal. Had they been turned over long ago when they should have been turned over, or if they should have been turned over, I'll get to that. They would have been part of the record, if you will. They do contain some of its opinion. Maybe the best thing, these are individuals who claim to be very close friends with Ms. Clarkson. As the old saying goes, with friends like that, who needs enemies?
Right.
A lot of it will never be admitted at trial. It's clear that it's irrelevant. It has to do with her lifestyle, and other than her any expression she may have made about depression or what she wanted to do with her life, which are relevant, and I assume they will be brought forth and will come out. Those are fine. Even though it may not be admissible, it's no different in my mind than if you have a hearing to suppress evidence and the defense says, please close the hearing, judge. You know, if you suppress this, the jury pool might know about it and we're forever prejudiced, and the case law is pretty clear. It's you deal with it. Of course, you deal with it in voir dire, which in this case isn't necessarily present, but the bottom line is I think those reports are going to have to be made public. I just want to give everybody a heads up, and I'm sure it's going to be painful for the family. I will say there's nothing, when I say painful for the family, there's nothing in there that's of any, some amazing revelation. It's just, people, it's not pleasant. I mean, there's things about her personality and perhaps things that she did, which certainly I don't think the family's going to want to read, but that's not the test. It's not so prejudicial that it's going to impact the people's rights.
Still pop it in.
No. So I'm just letting you know, although they were filed under seal, I intend in all likelihood to just file them as part of the motion. I think you filed one form of the motion that has all the reports in it, and that's the one that will probably go in. If not, I'll just add the under seal items into the motion, without for a moment suggesting that there's any basis for getting these, the majority of the reports in, as I previously indicated. So I don't know how much the people are prejudiced. Yes, it makes you do extra work, I agree. And by the way, these violations, whether they're negligent or whether they're deliberate, there's too many of them, this whole box of reports, to say, well, that's just the way it is. It's not just the way it is. The defense has the same obligation whether they like it or not. I'm quite sure if the shoe was on the other foot and the prosecution was the one not turning over these documents, and they said, look, we didn't do it deliberately, we've got a box, we forgot to bait stamp them, we forgot to turn them over, you'd be making the motion and not the prosecution. That doesn't answer the question of what the appropriate remedy should be for what is clearly, as to certain items, a discovery violation which has been conceded. Because there's so much that's not coming in these reports, I'm not sure how prejudiced the people have been, certainly not to the level of excluding witnesses, as to whether the court should consider, at the close of the trial, giving what has now become CalCrim 306.
Oh my God!
To answer
Bobby, yes. Okay, yeah, Bobby, you haven't been here for a minute. Yeah, since we've started this one, does he not look like freaking Bruce Willis? It's crazy. It's like Bruce Willis is playing this judge in Hollywood. Like, this is it blows my mind every time.
the
Judge
criticism of former CalJIC instruction. I want to say it was 288, but I'm not sure. I could find it. It's not important. The former CalJIC instruction, because the CalJIC instruction allowed the jury to infer that counsel's misfeasance or malfeasance, as the case may be, could be attributed to the defendant, which was the fatal flaw in the instruction. The CalCrim instruction specifically states that it's not to be used in any way on guilt or innocence. Frankly, I think it can be better written. To be honest with you, I might, if I ever give it, and that depends on how all this case plays out. And frankly, I'm going to look at how the witnesses and whether I think the people have been in any way significantly prejudiced by any discovery violation. If I find they're not, then I'm not even going to, I'm not going to raise it. There's a separate issue with Dr. Lee. That has to be dealt with, and that is not this general discovery issue. This is the issue which we are attempting to resolve concerning the evidence at the house, and that's a different story, and I'll reach, when I find what the facts are in this case, in that matter, if I ever do, then I'll determine whether anything needs to be done about it. But right now, the only remedy I would consider would be the possibly giving that instruction, and I'm quite a ways away from even thinking about that until I see how the case plays out. If I'm satisfied that the prosecution has had ample time to do appropriate investigation and they have not been prejudiced in any significant fashion, I probably would not give the instruction. So we'll have to wait and see.
You're on the redaction.
Putting that in right now, Sammy.
Is there anything else that anybody, before, I will get to anything else on that.
Just a brief comment. The 2.28 was the...
2.28, thank you. Right, and that had a fatal flaw in it, and that flaw, at least they have attempted to remedy it. It has not yet, as far as I know, been tested in the appellate courts, or we haven't had an appellate decision.
Well, the good news, I understand that the 306 was actually authored by Justice
Corrigan.
Well, Justice Corrigan led the committee that was formed by Chief Justice George. As I always say, why do I use CalCrim instead of CalJIC? That's why.
And she's now sitting on the Supreme Court.
When two members of the Supreme Court sort of put these instructions out, of course, it'll be subject to some of the instructions. I've found some flaws in some of them, but they asked for that. They asked for input. And we will see, but I can think of, if I ever get to that, probably a little better way to write it, but that's neither here nor there.
The other thing I was going to ask, again, while I'm thinking of it, because at this point in life you have to do that, otherwise it goes away. Would you give us a heads up at some point before the end of the trial if you are leaning toward that?
Yes.
So we can deal with it?
Yes.
Can I have just a quick...
Well, I think the appropriate place is when the trial's over and we're talking about instructions. If the prosecution requests, I'm not giving it on my own, if the prosecution requests that instruction, then we'll sit there and argue about whether there's been any significant impact. First of all, I'd have to be convinced of a significant detrimental impact on the people's case before I touch that instruction. Minor violations or things that were, given the length of this trial, that they were able to counter, and it did not impact them. It doesn't excuse necessarily the violation, but the question is whether there should be a sanction. That's a whole different...
What I'm concerned about is that there's a factual vacuum. Both sides have simply filed motions making factual assertions, but there's been no real factual record made. And it probably would be appropriate if we get to that point, or if we're getting near that point, that some factual record be made.
If it becomes necessary, if I'm leaning towards the giving of instruction, I'll give you an opportunity to establish any facts you need to show that it hasn't taken place. But I think the best way for me to do that is listen to the evidence, listen to the witnesses, see how the people rebut certain evidence, and if I'm satisfied that nothing serious has happened, then we deal with it. That's okay.
Yes.
Certainly.
Oh, God, they cut the mic. They cut the mics. They got the damn mics.
What we've discussed is a portion in a report that is completely irrelevant to any proceedings, and there's
Ladies and gentlemen, they got the mics. They got the mics. What are they doing back there? What are they doing?
It is, I think, extremely embarrassing, perhaps, to certain individuals.
I'm gonna start calling these trials like a
without
wrestling
any
match.
probative value whatsoever.
Judge Bruce Willis in possession to make a decision. He's coming in hot.
I might consider redacting if it's in any of the reports that you filed. I might read, and I think it was. I think I remember reading it. And for the same reason, I'll make the necessary finding that the reporter seal what just took place at the bench. It's very trivial, but it is not anything that I think should be out in the public domain. And I think there is, even to a decedent and that decedent's family, they do have some rights of privacy. That is the overriding interest that would support the sealing of the record. And that right would be substantially prejudiced if the record was not sealed. And it's as tailored as I can make it. It's very, very narrow. It goes to one.
Literally the same thing.
Minor or one small detail. And based upon that and prior orders that the court has made, that portion of what we did at the bench will be sealed, and if necessary, I'll redact any of the reports that were filed as part of the motion, and then make the rest of them public.
Yeah, the other thing is that in a number of the reports, we asked the witnesses to give us names and addresses and phone numbers.
Yes, phone numbers, anything that would invade somebody's privacy can be redacted.
Very good.
You know, every individual has a right not to be contacted just because they happen to be a witness in a case or have some pertinent piece of information. They don't need their phone number out there. They don't need to be contacted. And all these little bits of information can also lead to identity theft in this day and age, which is a sad fact. And for all those reasons, those matters can be redacted.
God, imagine saying all this in 2007.
There is,
the world
I think that
now.
takes care of the discovery issues that I'm aware of.
It does, Your Honor. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
We filed one issue concerning a witness. The defense has not had a chance to look at that.
I will just say that, assuming that the defense doesn't go along with that, which I doubt they will,
Yes.
I would point out that it's not that there's anything wrong with your points and authorities, but I would also point out that the evidence that I have let in for the people, that also goes back a number of years.
I'm very well aware.
So I would be leaning towards not granting the people's request, and you can keep that in mind before you file a lengthy response.
Your Honor, Mr. Bruno and I had already talked about the fact that we come up with, we find a felony that they should have given us, now they're moving to it. So it's very ironic. It's usually we're on the fighting end of that.
I am.
Yeah, I would hope that this judge would take that as like a, that it's a respectful thing. Like, I love this dude.
I'm sure the people have done what they want.
Honestly, no actual way to tell what his personality is, but from gathering from what I can get from this trial, he seems like he would get it.
There's equities involved here.
Yeah.
We'd be willing to let some of this ancient evidence go, including that, if they would reciprocate.
For those who are sitting in complete lost fog in the audience, the prosecution is seeking to have me exclude a prior felony conviction of one of their witnesses. It is an old conviction, and for the reasons I have just stated, I am not leaning towards granting their motion, and therefore, in all likelihood, the witness will be impeached with that prior felony. Anything else?
No, thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:30. Thank you.
Let's see how long the next clip is real quick. See what we got left here today on Murder Church. And thanks everyone for hanging out this morning. Really appreciate it. It's taking a moment here, taking its time. Next, we got a 55-minute one. We're going into photographer Stephanie Jennings, who claims Specter brandished a handgun when she refused to go in his New York hotel suite in 1995. Takes the stand. Wow. Again, what do we have a pattern here? A horrible pattern with this fucking dude. What the hell? Yeah, you know what? I think we're going to keep on rolling. We're going to do another one here this morning. We're going to go to about 1 later, Murder Church. Real quick, I do want to shout out all the beautiful people that's come through today. Real quick, let me go back up here. I don't even remember where I left off. You guys are freaking amazing. I think right here, Majestic Unicorn coming through saying, thank you. Well, thank you. hanging and banging, lurking in the back. If we got lurkers out there, we really appreciate the lurkers as well. If you have not hit the like, please do
I'm
so.
telling you like it is, baby.
Really appreciate it.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
This
place is dead anyway, man.
Down a little bit. Whoa, I'm hitting the wrong ones all over the place. Hold on.
Just chilling.
Just chilling.
Respect my house.
That's what Judge Diehard is saying on a regular fucking basis in here. Megan Easton coming in here, dropping $2 in the pot, and then right behind it, boom, become a member. That's 2 new members here today on Murder Church. Thank you so much, Megan. I think you're going to really enjoy it here. Again, I've got some cool stuff planned. Put it in the chat there, but Saturday I went to this really cool restaurant, which used to be a funeral home. And the building is from 1890. I went in there. I got some cool footage and pictures that I'm going to try to put together a little video for that will be for members and Patreons exclusively. So I'm going to try to start doing stuff like that for members. And also, if anybody's following me on Twitter, on X, guys, so a couple of years ago, before I got into true crime, I was trying to do a food thing. I called myself Spaced Out Cookboy. And every time those pictures from when I was doing those posts from during COVID, early 2020, even to 2021 a little bit, and I started this channel in January 2022, I kind of get the bug again. So I'm going to try to start setting up me cooking and doing recipes and doing that also for members and Patreons and trying to hype it up on X as well. So make sure you're following on there. But yeah, thank you very much, Megan coming through. And then right there, Shelly coming through right at the end, baby. That's what I like to see. Miss you all. Have a great day. $9.99. Thank you so much, Shelly. That's absolutely amazing. And I like the thing where you can hit the likes now. I just now did that and it took it away. But thank you so much, Shelly. That's absolutely amazing. Been an insane, beautiful morning here in the church. Here in the church, baby. Woo! Woo! Yeah, everybody having a good time in the pews. I see it out there. I see them, baby. I'm going to get a wig. I'm going to get a gavel. We're going to be doing this thing the right way, okay? We're going to be doing this the right way. Oh, yeah, and I got some clips of the deck party, too. Yeah. No, that's actually coming as well. I do actually need to delete some stuff because I didn't get the entire... The deck's so big. I didn't get the entire thing recorded, and it killed my phone. That's how big Dan's deck is. Let me just put it in perspective for you guys real quick. All right? You're going to get half a deck because this got out of control. All right, but yes, you're going to get a little bit of that as well. And yeah, man, we're going to be doing some stuff. So love you guys. Let's roll another hour. I'm going to run upstairs, use the bathroom real quick, and I will be right back. Again, how many people did he put a gun on? How many women did he put a gun on, right? I bet he didn't do this to any men.
The record will reflect that defendant is present with his counsel. The district attorneys are present. Are we ready for the jurors?
Almost.
Okay.
Bring the jury.
I had asked the court to take a look at the transcription of a couple of tape-recorded phone messages for the next witness, which is Ms. Jennings. And I think we did hand it up to the court, and the court said we wanted to look at it, and then we hear argument.
Okay.
Rule. The one point that I did want to make this morning about it, Your Honor, is this. I suspect that, and I anticipate that Ms. Jennings will be addressing 2 instances,
He does crack a bit.
incidents. And this really has nothing to do with either of them because this transcription of these 2 phone messages fall between the 2 incidents, alleged incidents. And therefore, I don't think it has anything or any bearing on either of them. It certainly doesn't have any bearing on why she's being offered under 1101B. And also, as I made my argument earlier, I indicated to the court, I'd ask the court to exercise its discretion in 352 because the probative value does not in any way far exceed or outweigh the prejudicial effect on this. It's a very prejudicial pair of phone messages. It has no bearing on what I believe her testimony is going to be, either regarding an incident in September of '94 and then an incident in January of '95, neither of which have anything to do with a phone message which appears on the December 24th date, which is sandwiched in between those 2. And actually, if you look at the content and the subject matter, it really doesn't have anything to do with either subject matter that she will be addressing in her testimony. So there's a foundational argument, there's a materiality and a relevancy argument, and under 352 there's an argument there on the probative value versus prejudicial effect, and we'd ask the court to exclude it.
Thank you. People?
Very briefly, I think the easiest way to handle this for the court is to hear her testimony first before you can completely synthesize where, if anywhere, this fits into a relevancy argument. With regard to 352, Obviously, the jurors have already been privy to certain foul language on the part of the defendant. If that's the 352 argument, I think that falls flat, that this is a murder trial, that they're going to hear a lot worse than the F word or something like that. With regard to relevance, I think the court should hold in abeyance any ruling on this particular phone message or set of phone messages until Ms. Jennings testifies, and it may be that it doesn't come up in our case in chief, rather in our direct examination. It may become relevant based on the cross-examination. I simply don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
Well, just simply put, I heard Mr. Jackson's argument, but part of his argument didn't address my point, which is how is it relevant to either incident? And the reason he didn't address it is because I think he was unable to address it because it doesn't. It has nothing to do with either incident. And I think we should get a ruling now. I mean, she's about to walk up on the witness stand and testify, and I think we need to know where we're going with this.
Well, I think the bottom line is I can't rule till I hear her testimony. On its face, if indeed it doesn't relate to the incidents that everyone believes she's going to testify to, I would agree with you. It has nothing to do with the case, but it may, based upon either direct or cross. Right now it appears I agree with you. I have to hear all the evidence. I'm not going to make an absolute ruling and then find out that there is something relevant and you say, gee, we're caught by surprise. I'm telling you that until I hear all of her testimony, I don't know if this will be relevant.
Would it assist the court in any way if I made a, we'll call a reverse offer of proof here as to what I think the two incidents are?
Yes. If you want, I'm not going to preclude you, certainly.
There's two incidents, Your Honor. I expect and I anticipate based on the receipt of discovery that she will testify that in September of '94, she was at Mr. Spector's house, and I believe her testimony is going to be that she was unable to leave for a period of 2 or 3 days. There was no weapon involved whatsoever, and ultimately she was allowed to leave. That's all plain and simple. Then there's going to be other testimony regarding what's been termed by the prosecution and defense team as the Carlisle incident, and that's basically a situation which occurs after the fact. As you can see from the transcript on page 3 at line 5, this is dated December 24th of 1994. So this clearly has no relevancy to that because the Carlisle incident occurs on January 13th of 95. So therefore, this precedes that. It wouldn't have any relevancy to that. And secondly, this follows 3.5 months, about 3.5 to 4 months later from the September 94 and doesn't reference it at all. It has nothing to do with it. So I hope that maybe with that short offer of proof that will help the court in resolving this issue.
I think basically what it's done is solidified my opinion that I need to hear the testimony, that on its face it appears it probably is not relevant, and that's where I'm going to leave it until I hear the testimony.
Okay, very well.
All right, let's proceed. Let's bring in the jurors, and let's proceed with the case.
Must be bad if they don't try.
All right, the record will reflect the jurors and the alternates are present. People have another witness?
We do, Your Honor.
Could be a trigger warning moment here.
All right.
Last one definitely was.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Stephanie Jennings, StephanieJennings.
Thank you. Why don't you sit back, pull the microphone underneath your chin so you don't have to lean forward, and you may proceed, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Jennings, thank you for joining us this morning. I want to draw your attention immediately back to April of 1994. Where were you living back then?
In Philadelphia.
And what was your occupation?
A photographer.
Were you employed by any particular agency, or were you what, in common parlance, is known as a freelance photographer?
Mainly freelance, but I did have an agency.
In 1994, in April of that year, did you attend the Philadelphia Music Alliance Awards ceremony?
Yes, I did.
Describe for the court what the Philadelphia Music Alliance Awards ceremony was.
Mainly, Philadelphia has a lot of musicians that they honor, and they give a big production, and there's a dinner, and Phil Spector was the keynote speaker, I believe.
Okay, you may have just answered my next question. When you look to your left, who are you looking at when you said Phil Spector?
Oh, he's wearing glasses today. I need to put glasses on.
What is he wearing right now?
A gray suit with a black shirt.
Indicating the defendant for the record.
Thank you,
We
Your
did
Honor.
get the wig today.
That sort of presupposes my next question. I was going to ask
still
you,
really like
did you
this
meet
wig.
anybody that you see
Changed
here
it
in
up,
court
yeah.
today? Did you, in fact, see or meet Philip Spector at that event back in April of 1994?
Yes, I
These
did.
glasses
And what was
humanize
the
me? No.
what was the connection between yourself and Mr. Spector?
After
Do you understand that? Can you answer that question? Just answer me yes or no.
yes,
The objection is overruled.
after I took pictures, I was introduced to Phil Spector.
Was that the first time that you had ever met him?
Yes,
Previous to April of 1994, did you know who Phil Spector was?
a little bit, not any details.
When you say a little bit, who did you believe he was, Philip Spector?
A producer,
Music producer or film producer?
music producer.
All right. Now, do you recognize, Your Honor,
Oh, God,
I'm
Cutler's
showing
back.
what
Jesus.
appears to
We
be
get
a
crossed today,
photograph,
it's gonna get
probably
spicy,
a
I bet.
35mm photograph bearing.
You don't like anybody
photograph of
talking
two
about
individuals.
Phil putting guns on
I
them,
believe people's next in
forcing
order
them
may
to
be
do
5.
anything.
I think it's 4, but let me double check to make sure I didn't miss one.
Remember, hit that
It's
like,
5.
guys. You're just
What was
coming in.
people's
Appreciate
4?
you hanging out today.
The CD that goes with transcript people's sleep.
Thank you. Let me make a note of that. People's 5.
Had a
Then.
good
Thank you.
morning here on the
Thank
murder
you, Your
church.
Honor.
In the murder church.
Take a look at the photograph that's being displayed on the screen. Tell me if you recognize the people that are in that photograph.
Yes, I do.
Who are those people?
Myself and Phil Spector.
When was that photograph taken approximately?
I believe in late in '94 at the Philadelphia Music Conference.
So this is after, this was not taken at the April event, but sometime after that.
Correct.
Now, Ms. Jennings, I noticed that with regard to the photograph that's taken back in 1994, there's a little bit of difference in you today as opposed to back then. Can you explain that for the court?
I had a car accident
When?
close to 2 years ago.
It just explains the difference. The objection's overruled. You may answer the question.
Go ahead and explain for the court, please.
I was in a bad car accident. I totaled my car.
Okay, and did that impact your face at all?
Yes.
Okay. I'm very sorry about that. With regard to that April 1994 event, other than the single introduction that you said you had with Mr. Spector, did you have any other contact with him at that event?
At that event?
At that event. All right. When was the next time, if ever, you came in contact with Philip Spector?
I believe a month later at Elaine's restaurant
Where is Elaine's restaurant?
in New York.
What were you doing in New York?
I was just visiting a friend.
Did you work in New York sometimes?
Yes.
Did you, I'm sorry?
My agency was in New York.
Okay,
My
so
photo agency.
was it unusual for you to go back and forth between Philadelphia and New York?
Not at all.
And for those of us that live out here on the West Coast, how far apart are those two cities?
An hour
By train, by car?
by bus, train, or car.
Okay, planes, trains, or automobiles?
Exactly.
All right, all right. Explain the circumstances in which you came in contact with Philip Spector about a month later.
I was having a drink at the bar with a friend, and I went to the bathroom, and as I was coming out, so was Phil Spector coming out of the men's bathroom. And I'd recognized him from meeting him the month earlier, and I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Oh, I just took pictures of you in Philadelphia."
And what was Mr. Spector's first comment to you?
Overruled. You may answer.
Was, "I almost just shot you."
He said, "I almost just shot you?"
Yes.
Did you know what to take from that comment?
No.
Excuse me, question's been answered, Your Honor.
The question has been answered.
How did you react to that comment? "Well, I almost just shot you."
What do you mean? And he said, if they're going to come and get me, that's how they're going to do it. And I took that to mean...
Excuse me. Relevancy.
The question has been answered.
What did you take that to mean?
Objection, relevancy.
What's the relevancy of that? What you thought it was?
Your Honor, if there's any ensuing conversation, it certainly would give context to the ongoing conversation.
With that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to limit this particular question, or actually the answer, not for the truth of the matter asserted, but only to explain the rest of the conversation that apparently is going to be coming in. You'll not receive it for the truth of the matter asserted. You may proceed.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yes.
Based on discovery, I don't believe there is any conversation.
Well, we'll see, or to explain what happened. The bottom line is not being received for the truth of the matter asserted. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I don't know the answer. Tell me, was there any additional conversation after that?
He asked if I would join his table for a drink.
All right.
The motion to strike is denied.
Did you, in fact, join him at his table for a drink?
Yes, I did.
All right. Tell me about that evening when you joined him at his table. Was there anybody else there? Were you alone? Was he alone?
My friend had left the bar, and there were several people at his table for a drink.
Do you remember any of the people at his table?
Offhand, I can't remember who all was there now.
All right. How long did you join him for that drink, if you will, at his table?
It was till after the restaurant closed.
Did you have dinner?
No.
After the restaurant closed, did you leave Phil Spector's company at that point, or did you continue to see him throughout the evening?
We continued to his hotel.
Describe that for us. What happened?
He asked if I wanted to, everybody at the table, if we wanted to go back to the hotel and continue to drink.
So not just you, but the whole group?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, join him back at his hotel?
Yes.
What hotel was that?
The Carlisle.
About what time was it that you and the rest of the group went back to the Carlisle Hotel?
It was after Elaine's closed, I would say between 2 and 3 a.m.
Describe the mood of the group, if you will, the demeanor of the group, if you can do that for me.
It was fun. Everybody was having a good time, joking and laughing.
All right.
I think the jury's there, aren't they? Or am I confused?
What happened once the group, and I think you indicated that you don't remember exactly who was in the group, but do you remember how many people were in the group?
I would say at least 4, maybe 5.
Did all 4 or 5 of you go back to the hotel together?
Yes.
Okay. How far was it from Elaine's?
It's not very far, maybe a 10-minute ride.
A taxi ride?
We were in a limo.
Okay. Once back at the hotel, did everybody go up to Mr. Spector's suite or room?
Yes.
And what happened once there?
There was piano playing, singing.
Were you singing?
No.
Were you playing the piano?
No.
All right, so there were some other people there that more musically inclined than yourself?
Yes.
All right. What happened back at the hotel other than singing and piano playing?
More drinking.
Okay. How many people ended up staying the whole night?
I believe just myself.
Okay. The next day, well, let me ask it this way. Was this the first time that you had had any social interaction with Philip Spector?
Yes.
All right. And did he ask you to stay the night?
Yes, he did.
Did you agree?
Yes.
All right. At no point during that evening did you say, I'm ready to leave or I want to leave?
No.
All right. The next morning, what happened?
I left during the afternoon.
I don't want to be indelicate. During the course of that evening, did your and Mr. Spector's relationship turn intimate?
Yes.
All right. Was that the beginning of a dating relationship?
Yes.
How would you describe that dating relationship between yourself and Philip Spector back in 1994?
It's kind of a long distance relationship.
Did you know where Mr. Spector lived permanently at that time?
Yes.
Where?
In Pasadena.
Is that because he told you that or you had visited him there?
I visited him there later, but because he told me that.
I'm talking about in 1994.
He told me.
Okay. Did you know whether or not Philip Spector also maintained some residence in New York?
I thought he had shared the suite at the Carlisle with, I guess, Princess Diana, like they both took shares.
At the same time?
No, separately, like
Okay.
they both shared it.
So both individuals might stay at the Carlisle Hotel in this particular suite at different times?
Correct.
All right. Did you know whether or not Philip Spector would stay for an extended period or extended periods of time in New York?
No, I don't know.
You don't know or he didn't?
I don't know.
All right. When you would see him, was it mostly, and I'm talking about during the course of your 1994 relationship, when you would see him, was it mostly on the East Coast or did you fly out here to the West Coast?
Mostly on the East Coast.
All right. After that first night, did Mr. Spector indicate whether or not he wanted to stay in contact with you?
Yes.
How did he so indicate? What did he say?
He told me he'd like to. Could he call me?
Did you give him your number?
Yes, I did.
Did you two begin a telephone relationship, if you will?
Yes.
And you've already indicated that it was somewhat long distance, so were there cards and letters and telephone calls written back and forth and made to each other?
Yes.
How long did that go on?
I believe a year and a half, 2 years.
All right. In total?
Yes.
I want to draw your attention to January of 1995, January of the following year, all right? Did you receive any kind of an invitation from Philip Spector to attend the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies after party?
Yes, I did.
Describe that for us. When did you receive that invitation and how did you receive it?
He had called and asked if I would like to go, and that I'd have my own room at the hotel at the Carlisle.
Were you still living in Philadelphia at the time?
Yes.
Okay, and what happened?
And yes, I said I was interested, and he said he'd have his assistant get in contact with me with all the details.
Were you still working as a freelance photographer?
Yes.
Did you have any focus insofar as your photography was concerned, the subject matter?
That was a big focus of going to the party.
Tell me what, as a photographer, what interest would going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies have for you?
I would be able to photograph the artists that I sold pictures of.
Was that important to you professionally?
Yes.
Was it also convenient for you socially to see Philip Spector in a social atmosphere at either the induction ceremonies or the after party or both?
Yes.
Tell me about how you got to New York for that particular weekend.
Phil had sent a limo for me.
To Philadelphia?
Yes.
And so that you then joined him after that hour-long ride in New York?
Yes.
Did you join him at the induction ceremonies themselves?
No. I went to the hotel and checked in and changed and got ready for the party.
Do you remember who's being inducted, a notable figure that was being inducted in January 1995?
I'm not sure with the 2 years if it was when Peter Wolf with the Jay Giles Band and Neil Young, if it was that year that they were getting inducted.
Okay, but you do remember Neil Young being one of the inductees at some point?
Yes.
All right. Once in New York, and I'm sorry, I may have just asked you this and interrupted you, did you in fact attend the induction ceremony or just the after party?
Just the after party.
Okay, where was the after party?
It was at the Waldorf Astoria.
And what hotel did Mr. Spector get you a room to stay at?
At the Carlisle.
Tell me about the party.
The party, there's just hundreds of people in the music industry. Phil was playing piano with lots of other people, Paul Schaefer, Lisa Loeb, Robbie Robertson. Everybody was singing around the piano, including Stevie Wonder. I have pictures of all of that.
That was my next question. Did you take your camera equipment?
Yes.
And this is professional equipment?
Yes.
How much equipment would you estimate that you took with you?
Just one camera on my shoulder.
Was that and you're talking about
35 millimeter camera.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be very careful. The court reporter is going to kill me if we talk over each other. So make sure you wait till the end of my sentence before you answer me. At the actual party, you just have a 35 millimeter camera?
Correct.
Did you have additional equipment back at the hotel?
Yes.
Had you already checked into the hotel before you went to the party?
Yes.
How much additional equipment did you have with you back at the hotel?
My entire camera bag.
How much, well, was it a bag that contained just lenses or a bag that contained a couple of camera bodies and lenses or?
A couple camera bodies, lenses, flashes.
Okay, so a substantial amount of equipment.
Yes.
Is that the normal stuff that you would bring with you as a professional photographer to a particular event?
Yes.
All right. Did you check into your room at the hotel before you joined Mr. Spector at the party?
Yes.
During the course of the evening, well, did you go with him to the party or did you just meet him at the party? Or do you remember?
I went with him to the party.
All right. Was Mr. Spector staying at the same hotel that he had given you a room at the Carlisle? Yes. Was he staying on the same floor that you were staying at?
Real quick, so far what I've noticed is, at least, what we know with Lana Clarkson, they met the same night, but the three women, at least thus far, how deep this will go, I don't know how many more women will come forth and the length of time they've known each other, but the three so far, including this lady being the third, he made them feel comfortable. Like they knew each other, they dated, the second lady was more of an acquaintance, but, she felt comfortable. She did run errands for him. She didn't feel uncomfortable being in a room with him or in a house with him. And before he does this insanity with the gun.
Yes. Were you two sharing the same room or no?
Or at the end in 2003 with Lana.
Once at the party, you said there was a lot of singing and playing piano, etc. There were some notable figures at this party, correct?
Yes.
Was there any drinking going on?
Yes.
Did you see Philip Spector consume alcohol that night?
Yes.
Describe that for us.
He was drinking mainly vodka. So.
If you had to give an estimate as to the quantity of alcohol that Mr. Spector consumed throughout the evening, could you do that for us?
I don't know what the estimate would be, but I never saw him without a drink.
The answer was, I can't give you, I may be paraphrasing, I can't give you an estimate, but he was never without a drink. He was never without a drink.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
At the beginning of the night, could you describe Mr. Spector's state of inebriation or sobriety? Do you understand my question?
He seemed fine.
Okay. Toward the middle of the evening, could you describe that for us?
He had a lot more to drink. He was getting, in my opinion, a little drunk.
Toward the end of the evening, describe his state of inebriation or state of sobriety.
Extremely drunk, obnoxious.
When you say extremely drunk and obnoxious, describe the demeanor that you're trying to get across to the jurors.
Just very loud, insulting.
Did you hear him speak?
Yes.
Were his words slurred in any way?
Yes.
Did you see him walk?
Yes.
Was his gait, and when I say the word gait, I mean walking, was it steady or unsteady?
Unsteady.
Did he appear to you,
start calling people
based on
walking
your
their gait? Nice gait.
Experience with Mr. Spector, that he was in fact toward the end of the evening drunk?
Yes.
What happened toward the end of the evening with regard to you being at that party?
I was ready to leave. I hadn't seen Phil in probably an hour. Towards the end of the party, almost everyone was gone, and I was tired. I was ready to go, and I couldn't find him anywhere, so I walked down the steps to the front of the hotel and took a taxi back to Carlisle.
Did you just go back to your room by yourself?
Yes.
And what did you do once you were back at the room?
I went to sleep.
What happened next?
There was a knock at the door, and it was his bodyguard.
Did you recognize his bodyguard? How did you know this individual?
Earlier in the evening, before we left, he had taken a couple Polaroid pictures of Phil and I together.
He, the bodyguard, had?
Yes.
All right, so you had met him earlier the evening?
Yes.
What did the bodyguard say to you when he knocked on the door?
That Phil was requesting that I go over to his room.
About what time was this?
I would say between 3 and 4 in the morning.
At the time that the knock came on the door, were you awakened out of a sleep?
Yes.
And what was your response to the bodyguard when he said, Mr. Spector is asking for your company down in his suite?
That I was sleeping. I would see him in the morning.
Did you go to Mr. Spector's suite at that point?
No.
Did you shut the door?
Yes.
And what'd you do?
Got back in bed.
Then what happened?
There was another knock at the door.
What did you do then?
I got up and answered the door.
How long between these two knocks at the door?
5 minutes.
How far was Mr. Spector's room from your room?
I'm not exactly sure.
Was it on the?
It was on the same floor, but I'm not sure where on the floor.
Okay, so assumably down the hall or down a hall somewhere.
Yes.
We don't assume. Well, but given the possibilities, that is the only assumption. Somewhere down a hall somewhere. So I'm going to overrule. If that's an objection, it's overruled.
Who was who was at the door when the second knock came?
Phil was.
My house.
Philip Spector?
Yes.
And what happened?
And he came in the room and asked for me to come over to his room.
Describe his demeanor when he asked you to come down to his room.
He was definitely drunk, and he was loud and demanding that I come over to his room.
And what was your response?
No, that I wasn't going to.
And what did he do or say?
That he was paying for the room. If I wanted to stay, then I would go over to his room.
Did he say this in a nice way, or did
No.
he say, describe his demeanor as he was saying this?
He was getting angry and loud.
Did Phil Spector come into your room at that point? Or was this conversation at the doorway?
He was inside the room.
All right. What was your response when Mr. Spector said, I'm paying for this room and you'll come down to my suite if I tell you to?
I said then, well, I'll pay for the room.
So what happened?
So we started arguing, and he said, then go pay for the room. And I said, fine. And I was trying to get all my equipment together and pack, and he said, you'll leave your bags here.
Why were you packing your equipment?
Because that was important to me, and I wasn't going to leave anything there.
See, another thing, he likes to have something of theirs, right? He likes to be in control of something that is important to them. And the first lady with the purse, right? Like, he wants to be able to hold you there. Oh, you can't leave if I have your equipment.
I said I would take my bags to the front desk.
Fucking little troll.
And go take care.
He is a troll.
I don't think it
Live
has.
shot of the fucking crypt.
Go ahead.
I said I would take the bags down to the front desk and go take care of getting the money and paying for the room.
Was it your intention, based on Mr. Spector's comments and the argument that ensued, to leave that room?
Yes.
Was it your intention to take your belongings with you when you left?
Yes.
Did you tell him that that's what you were going to do?
Yes.
What did you say with that regard, if you recall?
That I wasn't leaving my bags in the room. I would leave them at the front desk, but I was not leaving them with him.
Did you indicate to Mr. Spector it was your intention, based on the argument, that you were going to leave?
Yes.
All right. What did he say when you said you were going to leave?
That the main thing was then I would have to pay for the room.
What did he say with regard to your camera equipment, your bag, your luggage?
I had to leave it there.
Overruled.
What did you begin to do as this argument erupted?
I was trying to finish packing everything up. I had everything packed up at what was in the bathroom.
And what was Mr. Spector doing at this time when you were packing things?
He was following me around, yelling at me.
When you say yelling, what kind of things was he saying?
I don't remember exactly. At this point, I was starting to cry and get very upset.
Was he saying nice things like, let me help you pack?
No.
Was he calling you names?
Yes.
Was he using foul language?
Yes.
Do you remember any of the language that he used specifically?
She's already answered, so she doesn't remember that. She did, but she may recall something. The objection is overruled.
Specifically, I don't remember at this point because I was getting very upset and crying and just trying to get everything together.
At some point, did you go into the bathroom to begin putting together your sundry items?
Right, that was the last thing I hadn't packed. So I was in the bathroom putting everything, all my makeup and everything together.
What happened when you went into the bathroom?
He came in after me and I don't know if he slapped me or pushed me, but there was physical altercation.
When you say a physical altercation, Ms. Jennings, are you saying that you turned on him and got physical with him, or he got physical with you?
He got physical with me, and I in turn then shoved him.
All right, we'll get to that in a second. When you say he got physical with you, do you mean he just grabbed a wrist, or grabbed your night clothes, or slapped you or hit you, or what did he do?
I'm not sure exactly if he slapped me or pushed me, but I ended up kind of falling backwards, like on the toilet.
And what did you do in response?
And then I jumped up and I grabbed him and I pushed him and he fell into the bathtub.
Was there a shower curtain?
Yeah.
Did the curtain come down?
Yes.
Did he go completely into the tub?
More or less, yes.
And what happened after you pushed Mr. Spector into the tub?
He got up and left the room.
Did he say anything to you before he left the room?
No.
What happened next?
Then as I was finishing, I packed everything, I had it on the bed ready to go, and he came back in the room.
Were you still crying at this point from the argument and from the altercation?
Yes, I was just trying to rush around, decide, what I needed to do.
All right. What happened when Mr. Spector came back into the room?
He had his gun with him, and he pulled a chair and put it in front of the door and said that I wasn't going anywhere.
Describe the gun that Mr. Spector had with him when he came back into that hotel room.
It was a small gun. I'm not sure exactly what type of gun it was, but it was a small handgun.
All right. Do you remember if it was chrome or black or any specifics about it?
Right now, I don't recall.
Do you know the
exact
difference?
Specifics.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words. Do you know the difference between a revolver and a semi-automatic weapon?
I do now.
Did you then?
No.
As you think back in your mind's eye to the event back in 1994, I'm sorry, January of 1995, do you now have an idea as to whether or not that gun was a revolver or a semi-automatic weapon, or do you know?
I'm not 100% positive.
Okay. When Spector walked into the room with this gun, did he point it at you?
Yes, he did.
Did he order you to do anything?
No, he just sat in front of the door and said I wasn't leaving.
When you say that Mr. Spector sat in front of the door, was there already a chair in front of the door, or did he move a chair in front of the door?
He moved a chair in front of the door.
Did he shut the door behind him when he came into the room?
Yes.
So literally, he pulled the chair out, set it in front of the door, and sat down in it like I'm doing right now?
Yes.
Did he have the gun out in front of him?
He had the gun all over the place.
Was he pointing it in your direction?
He had.
Has been asked and answered. The objection is overruled.
Yes, he did point it in my direction.
How did that make you feel, Ms. Jennings?
That I was about to get shot, that I didn't know what was going to happen.
And what was your reaction when Mr. Spector pulled this gun on you and sat in front of the door?
Well, I sat on the bed, crying, trying to decide what to do, and he didn't seem to really be paying attention to me sitting there, and so I picked up the phone and dialed 911.
Did you say anything to him to try to indicate your desire to leave or anything like that?
Yes, I mean...
What were you saying?
That I just wanted to leave, and that I would put my bags at the front desk and I would take care of paying for the room.
And what was his response while he had this gun in his hand?
That I was not leaving the room with my bags. And my main concern was my camera equipment.
Were you also concerned with your personal safety?
Yes, of course.
Did you say anything to him before you picked up the phone about who you were going to call or what you were going to do?
No.
What did you do with regard to that telephone in the room?
I picked the phone up and dialed 911, and for some reason, he thought I was calling my mother.
How do you know that? How do you know what he was thinking?
He made the comment that you can call your mom all you want, she can't help you now.
Is it your impression that he did not realize that you were calling for 911 emergency?
No, he did not.
Did you get a hold of a 911 operator?
Yes.
And what did you tell her? I realize that you may not have a memory of exactly the words that you used, but generally, what were you telling the 911 operator?
Whoever the operator was excellent. I didn't have to tell her anything. She asked the questions that all I needed was to say yes.
It's a good 911 operator.
Fine, it's any conversation between the witness and the operator, it's limited.
Only gets
not for the
wilder
truth
and
of the matter
wilder.
asserted, but to explain what the operator did and what the witness did. You may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. During the course of this conversation, you indicated or you started to explain that the operator didn't require you to say a whole lot. Tell me the gist of the
No,
conversation.
actually, just excuse me. I'm going to change my ruling. It's an excited utterance. There is no limitation. Ladies and gentlemen, you may consider this testimony without limitation. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. What was the gist of what you were saying to the 911 operator and the gist of what she was saying in response? I'm assuming it was a she. I probably shouldn't.
Yes, it was a she.
Okay. Tell me the gist of this conversation.
She asked if this was a domestic dispute. She asked if I was calling from the Carlisle. She asked if the person had a weapon, if it was a gun, if I was in fear for my life. And as I was answering all these questions, she said the police would be coming.
Were you answering mainly
Wow.
yes,
Yes.
no, yes, no?
Correct.
Is there a reason that you didn't just come out and verbally explain the whole of the incident?
He was sitting right there.
Did that scare you?
Yes.
Did you believe that you might incite him in some way?
Yes.
Did you explain to the 911 operator that it was Phil Spector?
When there was kind of a little bit of a commotion out in the hallway, and he got up and went to leave, and then I said to the operator who he was and what was going on.
All right. So at some point you were able to give a little bit more detailed information to the operator when you felt that you were more safe because he was out of the room.
Yes.
During the course of the beginning of the conversation, was Philip Spector still sitting in front of the door with the gun in his hand?
Yes.
Was he still pointing it in your general direction?
Yes.
Was he saying
That's
anything?
an insane, intense scene. They're in a bedroom. She has a moment. She makes the incredibly brave move of calling 911 with him right there with a gun. I'm saying pointed at her, as we can already tell. It seems like he's frantic and waving it around at many different times. So, and he's almost in like his own, I said it before, split personalities almost. Like he's almost in like his own little world at this point. Like the alcohol has changed him. And what a crazy scene. Like just picturing that is absolutely nuts. And then to have the luck of the 911, because I mean, there's a lot of amazing 911 operators out there, but we've also seen the ones being in true crime that are not so great, right? Like they are not necessarily tuned into what's happening. This lady, I'd like to hear this call. This sounds amazing. Like this sounds, and I said lady, this could be a gentleman as well. I have no clue. But whoever took the call of this lady, wow, because that's incredible.
With the 911 operator.
Not after the comment he made.
Okay, not after about the mom.
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that there was some kind of commotion that caused him to leave. Describe that for us.
It sounded like the elevator doors opening and people starting to come out of the elevator.
And what, in fact, did you see Philip Spector do when this noise emanated from the hallway?
He left the room and went out the door.
Did you see what he did with the gun before he left the room?
No, I did not.
At some point, did the police arrive in your room?
Yes.
And what happened next?
They asked what was going on, what I wanted to do about the situation. Some of them, there was several police officers, and they brought the hotel manager up, and they were...
I think the question's done. It may have, it may not have. Let's go ahead and finish, and if it appears that it's straying too far away, I'll strike it. You may proceed.
And repeat the question,
you were
please.
You were indicating that the police did in fact arrive. They asked you what had happened, and also some hotel manager or security, somebody showed up as well.
Yes.
What happened when these individuals made contact with you?
Some came in my room, and some were out in the hallway, and they were asking, exactly what was going on. And I told them, and I handed them my business card, and I had my camera equipment, and I just felt like they weren't treating me. They were treating me as if I was a call girl. They weren't taking what was going on seriously.
Did you tell them that the incident involved Philip Spector?
Yes.
And this is the same Philip Spector that shared a suite at this hotel with Princess Diana?
That's all right.
That's misstatement of the evidence.
Excuse me. Thank you. The question is stricken. The jury's admonished to disregard it, and you may proceed.
With regard to your conversation with hotel security or hotel management, as well as the police, did you indicate that this was, in fact, an incident involving Philip Spector?
Yes.
Did they appear to know who Philip Spector was?
Objection. Cause for speculation.
No, there may be something that they did, may not, and we'll see what happens. You may answer the question.
Well, may I also, for the record, close an objection on hearsay grounds.
The objection is overruled. You may proceed.
Yes.
How do you know that?
They had been up to the rooms previously.
I'm an objector.
It's the basis for her belief that they knew who she was talking about, or they knew Philip Spector. There may be a basis for it. I believe she's explaining they were there at some time with him present. Maybe not. Were they there with him present?
Not at that time. Previously, when we were over at his room with the piano playing and everything, they had come in. And so it was the same people. I believe they know exactly who he was.
Okay.
Well, it's speculative.
Well, as to who he was, that's a very broad category. As his background, perhaps not, but you believe he was present when they were there at an earlier time?
Yes.
All right, with that, that will remain. You may ask your next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. You indicated that you didn't feel like they were taking you seriously.
Correct.
What did, in fact, happen when you explained the story to them?
They just wanted to know what I wanted to do. Did I want to press charges? I was very upset and crying at this point, and I didn't know what I should do. I asked, should I press charges? What should I do?
What was the response that you got?
Basically, why don't I come down to the office, the hotel office?
Did you join these folks down at the office?
Just the hotel manager.
And what happened then?
And he gave me money to take the train back to Philadelphia.
Did you feel like, was it your impression, and I'm not asking you what their impression was it your impression that you were just being quietly scooted out of the hotel to leave things
Insane.
live?
Yes.
Princess Diana was sharing a suite
At this
with
point,
Phil
based upon how the
Spector.
question was asked, the objection is sustained. The answer is stricken.
Am I understanding that correctly? While he's holding someone essentially hostage with a gun?
Did you in fact press, as you understand it to mean, press charges?
No.
In other words, did you follow up with any indication that you wanted criminal charges filed?
Not criminal charges.
Why?
I really didn't know what to do. I just wanted to get out of there with my equipment and myself.
She got fucking lucky she got the call at 911.
Was that your main goal?
Yes.
Operator.
Ultimately, you made it back to Philadelphia.
Yes.
After this incident, did you have any more contact with Philip Spector, either telephonically, in person, otherwise?
Yes.
Did Phil Spector ever mention this gun incident with you again?
No.
Did you ever bring it up?
No.
Why not, Miss Jennings?
I just felt it was the best thing to not bring it up.
What was the nature of your contact with Mr. Spector after this event?
He had asked me if I wanted to go to the same event the following year.
Did you agree?
Under the agreement was I really wouldn't even see him. I'd have my own room. I'd go to the party, and he would be leaving directly after the party.
Did you, in fact, go to that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame party the following year?
Yes.
Did you go with Mr. Spector this time?
No.
What was your reason for accepting an invitation a year later after this event had happened?
As a photographer in the music industry, that's the type of event I needed to be at.
How did you feel about the idea of making contact with Philip Spector after this event? In other words, being alone with him versus being in a crowd with him.
I didn't feel I'd be alone with him. Well, I was not going to be alone with him.
Did that have any impact? Well, the fact that you believed you were not going to be alone with him, did that have any impact on your decision to accept his invitation to go to the party?
Yes, if I wouldn't have had my own room, and basically he had said I wouldn't have any contact with him, he would be leaving directly after. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have gone to the event.
At some point, did your relationship with Philip Spector, well, let me ask it this way. After this incident, did you have any further romantic relationship with Philip Spector ever again?
Not after those events.
Absolutely.
After January of 1995? In other words, did you maintain a romantic relationship with Mr. Spector after January of 1995?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, with regard to
So she was not there
using
at the same
event,
time.
At the Carlisle Hotel where he pulled a gun on you, do you remember what the nature of your relationship was after that?
It was just over the phone.
All right. Were you ever alone with him again?
No.
Did you ever spend the night in his hotel again?
No.
Were you ever at his house?
Not after that.
That's so crazy. It just shows the
When was the last
position the
time?
guy was in.
Let me back up and ask one precursor question. At some point after the second year that you went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after party, okay, not the incident at the Carlisle, not the gun incident, but the following year. After that, were you invited to any kind of an event by Philip Spector?
The last time that I heard from him, he had called while he was in the studio with Celine Dion and had asked if I wanted to fly out and take some photographs while they were in the studio.
And did you agree?
I said I would like to in a couple days, but I couldn't leave that day.
And what was his reaction?
He wanted me to leave that day.
Did you tell him you would or would not?
I would not leave that day.
So what happened after that with regard to your relationship?
So then that was it. If I wouldn't leave that day, then it was done.
That was the last time you talked to him?
Correct.
I'm going to take you back in time just a little bit. Was there ever an invitation to a birthday party?
Yes.
Was it prior to the Celine Dion invitation?
Yes.
And tell me about the invitation to the birthday party.
I was...
The name drops are crazy.
I don't think we need to. It shows a relationship post the Carlisle incident and prior to having no further conversations with him. That's relevant in my mind. There is no further foundation that need be laid.
Well, just the way the question was phrased, I'm not sure it's post-Carlisle.
I just asked Mr. Jackson. He nodded to me. Based upon that it is post-Carlisle, the objection is overruled.
I'll just ask the witness, after the Carlisle hotel incident, and when I say that, I'm talking about the incident with the gun. I know you'd probably been to the Carlisle and other times.
Oh, got him
The
back here
incident with the
creeping.
gun. After that, was there an invitation to a birthday party?
There was an invitation to his birthday party.
Okay, tell me about that.
I was supposed to meet him as his date for his birthday party.
And did you?
No, I did not.
Why?
I had started seeing someone, and I didn't feel it was appropriate, and I basically stood him up.
Did you hear from him after that incident?
Several times on my answering machine, several threatening phone calls concerning the event.
Concerning that particular birthday party?
Yes.
He left messages on your answering machine?
Yes.
Were these kind in nature or otherwise?
No, they were horrible.
Describe them for me.
They were threatening, calling me names I had not been called before, said I would never work again in Philadelphia. He was that good at what he did, and he could make sure that I would never work again.
Was it after this, and I'm going chronologically now, was it after these threatening phone calls, I'm sorry, these messages that were left on your answering machine, was it after that that he then asked you if you would like to photograph the Celine Dion recording session?
Yes, it was a while after that.
All right, and you declined to leave that day?
Correct.
After that, after you declined his request to come out that day regarding the Celine Dion incident, did you ever have any more contact with Phil Spector again?
No, I did not.
At some point, Ms. Jennings, did you hear about the death of Lana Clarkson in February 2003?
Yes, I did.
When was it that you became aware that Lana Clarkson had been killed?
I guess shortly after it happened, a friend of mine called and told me what she'd heard on the radio.
At some point subsequent to that time, when you realized that there had been a death, that Lana Clarkson had died, were you contacted by anybody who claimed to be a writer?
Yes, I was contacted by many different media people.
All right. Describe the contact. Did you actually ever talk to one of these individuals or interview with one of these individuals?
Yes.
Tell me the nature of what this person said he was doing or she was doing.
Basically, a story on Phil Spector.
All right. And what was the reason that this person gave for contacting you?
He knew I had brought Phil Spector in to be the keynote speaker.
Objections to what he knew.
Well, when you say he knew, is this something he told you?
The writer?
Yes.
Not only did he tell me, but he was at the Philadelphia Music Conference.
The objection is overruled.
Go ahead with your answer. What did he explain to you was his intention?
That he wanted to talk to me about, I guess, background on Phil Spector and use my pictures for an article that he was doing.
Did you agree to allow him to use, or at least agree initially to interview with him and discuss the idea of using some of your photographs?
Yes.
Did you know what company or what entity he was with at the initial?
At the initial, no. I knew him from being at the Philadelphia Music Conference that Phil Spector was the keynote speaker at my request.
Did you in fact meet with this individual writer?
Yes.
And did you bring photographs with you to show this individual?
Yes.
And that was for his, at least the purpose that you believed was for his use of those photographs in an article that he was writing about Phil Spector?
Yes, and he took the photos with him.
All right. During the course of showing him, did you show him some of your photos?
Yes.
At this meeting? During the course of showing you the photos, were you in fact photographed holding one of the photos?
He had brought a digital photographer in, and the photographer said he wanted...
Excuse me, it's not responsive. It is responsive. Yes, would have also been more responsive, but explaining how the picture was taken, so I'm going to allow it.
It was actually that picture that's up there that he wanted to take a digital image of it, and I had a copy I wanted to just give him, and he said no, he needed to take a digital image. So he asked if I would hold the picture as he took it.
Okay.
And so when he didn't take just the picture of the picture, I'm in the picture also.
Did you believe at the time that you were talking to this writer that you were going to be the subject of an article?
No.
What did you believe?
That it was an article on the events that had happened.
Meaning the death of Lana Clarkson?
Yes.
Did you believe that your photographs might be used in an article about Philip Spector and the events of February 2003?
Yeah, I was positive that they were going to be used.
Okay. Did you have any problem with that?
No, that's what I am. I'm a photographer.
All right. When was the first time that you saw, and by the way, did you later learn who this writer was writing for?
Yes.
Who?
The National Enquirer.
Did you in fact at some point see an article written in the National Enquirer?
Yes.
When was the first time that you realized that an article was being published in the National Enquirer and you were the subject matter of it?
Well, when I read the article.
You had not previously been told that that was going to be the subject matter?
No.
Would you have agreed to interview with this writer had you known that you would be the subject matter?
No, I was not interested in being the subject.
Did he pay you for the use of your photographs?
He paid me $1,200.
Did you believe that that payment was remuneration for you being the subject of the article or for the use of your photographs?
For the use of the photo that he did use.
All right. On that same note, did you reach out and contact the police when you heard about this incident, or did the police contact you? Why are you here today?
Detective Tomlin had contacted me, or tried to contact me.
How did Detective Tomlin, and I'm assuming you're talking about Detective Rich Tomlin, one of the investigating officers on this case from the Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
How did Detective Tomlin attempt to get a hold of you?
He had called at work several times, and I was not interested in being involved, but he was relentless in calling, so I
called... Well, the Sheriff's Homicide people can be that way sometimes.
So I called my lawyer and told him what was going on and gave him the telephone number and asked if he would take care of the situation.
Did you, in fact, ever agree to meet with Detective Tomlin and interview with Detective Tomlin?
Yes, I did.
And his partner?
Yes.
Are you here voluntarily because you asked to come here, or did our office subpoena you to be here?
Your office subpoenaed me.
If you had your choice, are there other places that you'd rather be than sitting on that witness stand right now?
Yes.
The objection's overruled. The answer will stand.
In fact, after you realized that you could potentially be a witness in this case, have you ever contacted any media outlet in any way, shape, form, or fashion and told them any story about, or given them access to any article?
No, the media...
Objection's been answered. The answer will stand, and you may proceed with another question.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I have just a moment?
You may.
Getting close here, folks. Again, thanks for hanging out this morning. Amazing morning. Amber coming through here. What's up, Amber?
This place is dead anyway, man.
Just a quick second.
Yes?
I may have been clear as mud about one incident, and Mr. Dixon has just brought it to my attention. If I wasn't super clear about this, or if you weren't super clear about this question, please tell me. You indicated that while you were on the
Tiff,
phone with
get
911,
that Lightsky
the
guys
911
come through the
operator,
door.
at some point,
Come in here.
Philip Spector got up from the
a
chair,
little late today.
exited out of the door, and he went down someplace that you didn't see where he went, correct?
Correct.
Did he ever come back in the room with that weapon, or was that the last time that he left with the gun?
That was the last time that he left with the gun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just before Cross, Cindy, do you want to take a break now, or would you rather start with Cross? Take a break now? All right. We'll be, ladies and gentlemen, keeping in mind the admonition, we'll be in a brief recess. We'll resume in about 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you.
I'm interested to see what the next clip's going to be and how long it'll be. For Tuesday night, an hour, we're going to be starting again. Stephanie Jennings undergoes cross-examination. Let's just see who it is. Okay, it's not Cutler. Who is there? This guy's still a right douchebag, but he's not as bad as Cutler. Cutler's pretty brutal. Yeah, we'll be starting that, part 2, the cross of Stephanie Jennings, on Tuesday night. I might start that one at 8. We'll see. Just keep an eye on socials. We'll see. We'll fill it out, but I might try to do those at 8 so we can get 2 hours in. If we can go to 10 on Tuesday night, that would be sweet. Knock some of these out. We're on video 27 of like 230. So, and every single one is interesting in their own right. So, yeah, it's been an amazing morning.
Hold up! Just chilling.
Just been chilling this morning. Chilling.
Son of a bitch!
Not
I'm
messing
telling
around.
you like it is, baby.
Real quick, let me see if I'm missing any love given real quick before we do get out of here for the day. I think I got everything this morning. Yeah, everybody that did come through and became and membered up and donated this morning, you guys are absolutely amazing. Appreciate the hell out of that. And anybody that didn't see all of this one, go check it out. This one's pretty wild. This is another interesting day. We're on the third witness right now that is telling us an absolute horror story in the presence of Phil Spector. There seems to be a pattern with this man, and he is human trash. I don't feel bad about saying that whatsoever. Musical genius, whatever. You want to say that all day? That's fine. Sure. Okay. But the dude is a trash human being, all right? He get a little too much liquor in this fella, and apparently his personality completely changes into a disgusting scumbag. So, yeah, fuck Phil Spector. Keep an eye out for some new merch. I'm going to be doing some Kool-Aid merch. Wanted to see everybody talking about it here in the stream. So, yeah, and also new members. And one more plug, new members and Patreon folks. I'm going to put a Patreon link in here as well. I don't plug it as much, but I'm going to be doing some videos specifically for you guys. Like Saturday, I went to this restaurant that is a former funeral home. So I'm going to cut a video out of that. The building's from like 1890. It's just crazy. It has the original doors, has the original fireplaces still in this place. It's a 2-story. It's a really nice place. It's crazy. But yeah, it still has a funeral home vibe to it. So I'm going to make a video out of that. That's going to be especially for members and Patreon folks. And then I'm also, last night I was on the mega deck. Me and Dan had a little bit of a steak party, had a few friends over, and while I was filming that, I'm going to have to do some deletion into the phone because I ran out of space. Dan's deck, his mega deck is so big, I couldn't even finish it with one video. Only got about half a deck. So I'm going to have to finish that up, but you'll still get the video that I did get and some pictures of everybody. So, hell yeah. Oh my God, and Shiraz coming through here right at the end. Damn, rolling in, baby. I appreciate that. 5 people getting membered up. Who's going to grab them? Bobby Hansen. Queen Olive getting one. Is that Olive or Olivia? I think that's Olive. Aspiring court reporter Sarah grabbing one of those things. Julie Moran grabbing one of those things. And Jessica for Justice, who's hanging out in here. Jessica, I don't know if you're going live today. Are you going live still? If you're hanging out, I can put a couple of links in here. First of all, this one right here. And then, yeah, let me get Jessica's link in here for Kick. I don't know if she's going live today, but if she is, you're going to want to go and hang out with her. Well, yeah, you got membered up, though, either freaking way, which is sweet as hell. Love it. Well, first of all, let me let Judge Dowhard welcome you in.
Welcome to the party, pal.
That's him right there in the background. And I appreciate the hell out of that, Shiraz. Thank you so much. That's good. Love it. All right, guys. Everybody fucking rules. Yeah, we're going to have a great week. Have a great Sunday. And again, Tuesday night, Double Murder Church is on the horizon. That's what we're going to be doing here. That's what we're going to be rocking and rolling. Tomorrow, Karen Reed's back. So I'm going to be probably seeing everybody in the chats. Love you guys. Again, let's kick this week's ass. Murder Church is growing. Let's keep her going, baby. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Nothing to see here.